Zelda Invades Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351, Abnormal Enemy Titan Zombie Troops. Princess Washang thrust out her sword, and two sword energies rushed forward like fireworks, emitting golden microwave ripples. It looked beautiful, but in fact it contained extremely terrifying power. Before the two golden centaurs could draw their weapons, they were hit on the head by the two incredibly fast sword beams. They covered their faces and jumped up with their front hooves. At this moment, Princess Washang had already arrived in front of them quickly, with sword lights crisscrossing and covering the two tall centaurs. Hulk rushed directly through the dark green poisonous fog. These dark green gases, which looked terrifying, touched Hulk's skin and made a sound similar to dissolving. Hulk felt a little pain and screamed. The madness in his heart swelled more and more, and he punched the poisonous giant snake with barbs all over its body. The barbed poisonous giant snake hesitated when it saw that Hulk was not afraid of its poisonous fog. But Hulk's madness also aroused the ferocity of the barbed poisonous giant snake, which opened its mouth and bit Hulk. The inside of the giant snake's mouth, like the surface of its skin, was covered with densely packed barbed fangs that were sharp and glowing green, enough to scare a normal person into becoming a complete intensive phobia patient. This barbed and venomous snake was covered with sharp weapons, making it hard to know how to attack it. Hulk, however, was unwilling to make a choice, and his approach was more direct. He punched him first, no matter who he was, and then he would talk about it. Link was preparing to face the densely packed electric sword curtain attacking here, but Peppa and Rogers ran out together with a roar. Rogers rushed to the front, imitated Link's shield counter posture, and suddenly swung out the vibranium round shield in his hand. Of course, the shield counter was not triggered, but the attacking electric curtain was absorbed by the vibranium round shield, and the surrounding de-energized arrows were shot down by Peppa using the latest generation of weapon positioning system. Natasha also rushed up quickly, and when she passed by Link, she smiled and said, "We don't intend to give the whole battle to you." Zelda pulled Link's arm and said, "Let's go find the Pharaoh Dragon quickly." Link nodded. So he took Zelda and the Sky Princess and rushed into the depths of the jungle. The sword flashed, and a large area of bushes fell one after another. He didn't take a few steps before he felt a crazy S. The spider's ferocious and complex mouth pits were clearly visible, opening to the extreme, biting. Link shouted loudly, and blue light burst out from his body. The intense and dazzling electric light directly ignited Link's body into a transparent gold color. The arc of electricity stabbed out like a violent venomous snake, more like a spider web, trapping the fallen poisonous spiders. The strong current lit up the entire area, and the branches above broke with a sound, and then ignited flames, even though the branches were very wet due to the heavy rain. Zelda and the Sky Princess hit together, and the flying birds formed a thin large round shield above their heads. Those charred poisonous spiders, with sharp and pointed spider legs curled up in their abdomens, were scorched from the inside out by the electric shock, and fell down one after another like shaking an apple tree. The fallen spiders soon piled up into a pile of 20 centimeters high at the feet of the two princesses. The Sky Princess was pale. So many spiders. Link took a deep breath, knowing that the Sky Princess was afraid, so he danced mist-eating. The whip swung rapidly around Link's body and suddenly pulled out. The whip shadow exploded in the pile of charred spider corpses, clearing a relatively fast path. The road was full of dirty mud and colorful body fluids flowing from the charred bodies, but the air was filled with the protein-rich meaty aroma of the spider corpses, which made the two Zeldas feel uncomfortable. Link waved his hand again, and the surroundings were covered with a large amount of ice. He quickly pulled the two princesses out. Zelda was puzzled and said, "Something is wrong. This attack feels much stronger than before." Link nodded. That's right. As soon as he got off the plane, a large number of monsters rushed over. In addition, the strong smell of Ganon's curse here made Link feel uncomfortable. It seems that this area, even the soil, has been completely polluted by Ganon's will. The Washang princess killed the two tall golden centaurs very cleanly, but her dress and hair were not messy at all. She wanted to follow Link. But there was a strong sound of footsteps again. Enemy. Princess Washang turned around. From the bush passage created by the collision between the two golden centaurs, a giant centaur with a body that was even taller, at least 40 meters tall, appeared. It rushed over quickly, and every time it landed, the sound of its hooves was like a hammer hitting everyone's heart. This centaur was not gold or silver, and was different from ordinary centaurs. It did not have the agile and strong body of a centaur. Its body was severely deformed and swollen, and its body was like it was sewn by a drunk surgeon, with messy sutures all over. The horse's hair was sparse, and the exposed skin had ulcerated and oozing pus. Its abdomen was swollen, as if it was full of rotten tissue fluid. Princess Washang could not help but take 2 steps back. Zombie centaur. This zombie-like centaur, with its head wrapped in dirty cloth, only revealed an overly narrow single eye, with a thick pupil, just like the emotionless and dead eyes of a sheep. The arms of the zombie centaur were hanging on the ground, and the skin had fallen off, revealing the rotten muscle texture, which was tied together by chains and 2 wide 2-handed swords. Her scalp was tingling. Princess Washang had never seen such a disgusting and terrifying enemy before. She was unusually a little panicked. The zombie centaur was running towards her at a rapid speed. The dirty gauze in front of it was squirming, and it was making strange howling sounds, like a female ghost. Link also turned around and saw the zombie centaur. He also saw the somewhat frightened back of Princess Washang. He immediately gave up looking for the pharaoh dragon, suddenly flapped his wings and flew up, and faced the zombie centaur with a sword. Bang! Link used all his strength and finally took out the crystal Hylia shield before the zombie centaur touched Princess Washang, and swung it back. Perfect shield counter. The 2-handed sword that was hammered down carried the long arm of the zombie centaur and bounced to the top of his head. Link glanced at Princess Washang behind him and felt a little scared. The strength of the zombie centaur just now. If Princess Washang resisted it, something would definitely happen. If she arrived later and didn't catch up in time, the consequences would be serious. A shield counterattack was successful, and Link took advantage of the victory to pursue. He jumped up, and Arkle appeared behind him, smashing his chest with 2 heavy fists and roaring. The strength of Link's arms increased dramatically, and he raised the Master Sword high. The light almost cut through the rain curtain and slashed at the head of the zombie centaur. Crack. The sword swung. The rotten horse head flew into the sky with red and green blood. But just as Link landed, something suddenly seemed to wriggle from the swollen abdomen of the zombie centaur, and the bulge quickly rushed to the broken neck of the zombie centaur. Thanks to Cyanotang 246 for the 100 starting coins reward. Chapter 350 to attack Neo Lang. Link's toes just touched the ground, and he had not yet stood firm. He saw that the zombie centaur's neck cut by him was bleeding more and more, and the smell of rotten blood was everywhere. The chest of the zombie centaur was squirming and bulging, like a mouse running around under the carpet, and there was a creepy crunching sound. Link hurriedly pushed the Washang princess behind him. Crack. The muscles on the chest of the zombie centaur exploded, and the debris exploded into a blood mist, and a long ghost head stretched out from the chest of the zombie centaur. The teeth of this ghost head were like messy iron nails, filling the mouth with blood and debris in the gaps, and the whole body was emitting hot blood, just like a human head reborn from a hot pot. Unfortunately, this head seemed to be cooked, so that the skin and flesh were torn, the eyes were full of thick water, and it made a chattering, piercing and strange laugh. Midona screamed in disgust. What is this? Link just took one look at the ghost head sticking out of the zombie centaur, and he had the urge to turn around and run. The zombie centaur was dead, but suddenly regained its ability to move, rushing towards Link. And the ghost head also swung its narrow body like a fierce whip and stabbed Link. Too fast. Link was surprised, and his shield counter was activated faster than the soldier shooting. But the ghost head parasitized in the body of the zombie centaur was so fast that Link didn't even get a shield counter in place. The Hylia shield in his hand was hit hard and flew into the air. Link saw the ghost head rushing towards his head and biting it. The edge of the mouth was like the smoke of a high-speed train, with bloody mucus. Ha! Link raised his hand and blocked it with a sword, and the blade of the Master Sword was inserted into the ghost head's dangerous teeth. So hard. The hardness of the ghost head's teeth was beyond Link's imagination. He was actually struggling in this stalemate. But this was naturally not his limit. His eyes released light, and the triangular power on his chest lit up, and the 3 triangles instantly became scorching white. The sharp sword energy popped out, and the ghost head instantly broke into 2 halves, and exploded. The danger was not over yet. The zombie centaur, while using the exploding ghost head on his chest to attack Link, suddenly swung 2 big swords at Link with his 2 arms, tied with 2-handed swords. When Link was about to use bullet time or the power of the clone, the Washang princess and Midona on his shoulder immediately proved with their actions that they were not here to watch the show. Midona jumped up, took the crystal Hylia shield in the air, and frowned. It's so heavy. Seeing a 2-handed sword fiercely slashing at Link's waist, Midona smiled sinisterly. What the hell is this? She grabbed the crystal shield and used it as a dart, slashing it at the 2-handed sword. The crystal Hylia shield whirred around, spreading the dark red light of the reality gem around it, leaving a vague trace in the space wherever it passed. It was so sharp that even the space was shaken. Princess Washang also started almost instantly. She just regretted her loss of composure. After all, she was a girl, and she would feel uncomfortable seeing such an ugly thing. In order to make up for it, she stretched out the royal rapier in her hand and aimed at the other arm of the zombie centaur, which held another 2-handed sword, and threw it at Link's head like a javelin. Go, she shouted softly. The royal rapier in her hand was also thrown out like a fleeting meteor, and in the blink of an eye it rushed to the 2-handed sword that was stabbing at it. As soon as it came into contact, the thick and strong 2-handed sword was torn apart, as if it were made of paper, and the twisted iron filings hit the ground and the surrounding trees like shrapnel. Princess Washang's royal rapier, on the other hand, pierced into the heart of the zombie centaur without any hindrance, just like passing through a cloud of smoke. Bang! The crystal Hylia shield thrown by Midona smashed the 2-handed sword into 2 pieces, and 2/3 of it was inserted into the ground. The crises on both sides were respectively dealt with by Midona and Princess Washang. Link released his power boldly, and his body was enveloped by golden light. As the light swept over the human form, the extremely dazzling sword energy cut through the thorns and pushed in front of the golden centaur like waves. The powerful force instantly turned the body of this dirty giant monster into powder. Oh. Hulk stood on the barbed poisonous giant snake. This pitiful snake had its barbs in its mouth smashed by Hulk. A lot of blood oozed from its mouth, and it should not survive. Natasha turned her body sideways and fired a tracking bullet towards the woods where the lightning arrows were released. Then he said, Peppa, the target has been found. It's 8 lightning lizard warriors. Oh. Peppa hurriedly controlled Iron Man and randomly input a lot of commands. But the artificial intelligence assistance system developed by Tony is not a vegetarian. It immediately extended armor from the shoulders, legs, and waist. A large number of macro missiles rushed out with smoke, like a school of fish, piercing the brain, following Natasha's positioning bullets, and rushed into the dense forest. Boom 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 boom. The violent explosion caused a large number of trees to collapse, and several screaming lightning lizard warriors were blown into the sky, and no one knew where to fall. Link used the magnetic grabber to help Princess Washang retrieve the royal rapier, which was now covered with disgusting mucus. Link's body floated over a piece of lightning, flashing back and forth on the royal rapier twice. After the lightning was purified, the royal rapier returned to its original clean and bright state. Princess Washang took the sword handed over by Link with a smile, but her face was not very good. I just arrived, and this is such a great gift. It seems that this rainforest is quite interesting. Link also nodded. That's right, the monsters here are more ferocious than he imagined, far stronger than the enemies he encountered when rescuing Nilang and Orlang. The Ganonora here is higher than any other corner on the earth, and it happens to be blocked by the dark clouds above the rainforest all year round, so that Link and Nilang didn't notice it. I don't know how much suffering Ferrolang has suffered here, Roger said. Let's act quickly. Everyone nodded. Zelda released the flying bird, hovering in the air, alert to the surroundings. This journey began with a strong smell of blood, and when Zelda and others suffered an unprecedented impact in the rainforest. In Uruguay, South America, Nilang wandered around and shouted twice, hoping to attract Ferrolang's attention. He didn't know that Link had found the trace of Pharaoh Dragon, nor did he know that more than a dozen fighter planes carrying a large number of weapons were flying towards him from the United States. Unknown troops were also gathering there. The highest-ranking armed commander of the Global Defense Coordination Committee issued an order 5 minutes ago: bomb the local residents of Uruguay and put the blame on Neo Lang. Using this as an excuse, kill the Ice Dragon. Chapter 353, A New Army. At this moment, Quicksilver and others were lying on the sofa in the Avengers base. Natasha and Rogers followed Link to find Pharaoh Dragon. After a day of initial training, these new Avengers returned to their leisure time. Quicksilver stuffed potato chips into his mouth indignantly. Really, you don't trust us at all? Letting us go will definitely double the efficiency. Maybe Pharaoh Dragon has been found and is on the way home. Scarlet Witch also nodded. Captain and Natasha obviously don't take us seriously. So angry. Falcon is older and has little in common with these young people, but when he heard them mention Rogers, he immediately said, "That's because I'm worried about your safety. Because you are rookies, and you are rookies who have done something against them." Loki never forgot to add fuel to the fire. He moved a large recliner and table like Asgard from somewhere, holding an ancient wine glass in his hand, drinking the fine wine that had been brewed for 3,000 years, as if he was the master here. Scarlet Witch made a face at Loki. Lie. Who is this person who trained with us and was yelled at by Rogers? I remember there was a video online of you being beaten by Link. Loki dropped his wine glass on the ground and opened his mouth wide. How is it possible? At that time, Vision said honestly, it was very chaotic at the time, but Mr. Stark's Iron Man had a special combat recorder. So, Loki sat up suddenly and roared, "Tony Stark, you and I are irreconcilable." At this time, Tony walked in with a tired face. Outside the Avengers base, there were people from the Global Defense Coordination Committee following him, which made Tony very angry. Just now, Tony drove fast and got rid of these people who didn't let him go. It happened that Loki was heard roaring at the transparent ceiling. She looked at him unkindly and said loudly, "I heard you. You don't have to yell so loudly. If you want to try the power of Veronica's stuff, you can yell." Loki shook his hair and walked over angrily. "I advise you to delete those videos. Otherwise." Tony smiled evilly. "Otherwise what? Are you going to kneel down and beg for mercy?" Loki was now completely recognized by Tony and others, so Tony was not afraid that Loki would hurt him, even if he wanted to. Tony was not afraid now, and Vision and his gang of little guys were behind Loki. Loki couldn't make a big wave. Loki's eyes were already red with anger, but he smiled viciously and almost bumped heads with Tony in front of him. "Mortal, have you forgotten my identity? I have plenty of ways to deal with you." Tony looked disdainful. "Are you going to let your greasy hair quality pass on to me?" Loki suddenly glowed, and when he turned around, he turned into Tony Stark. Exactly the same as the real person in front of him. The same close-fitting suit, burgundy sincerity, tea-red glasses, and the carefully carved beard. Tony saw Loki become his appearance and hesitated. "Do you want to deceive Jarvis? Forget it. Iron Man has my special identification method. Even if I clone myself, Iron Man cannot be used without my permission." Loki imitated Tony's appearance vividly, hugging his upper arms, leaning his body slightly, and raising his chin frivolously. "Do you think I would do such a boring thing? Look at my face. And look at yours. If you make me angry, I will run out with this face and make a scene. You will soon see the scandal between you and a muscular fitness coach on your mobile phone news app." Tony took a breath. Loki's move was too cruel. Tony smiled hurriedly. His expression changed very quickly, and he hugged Loki's neck intimately. Okay, it's just deleting the video. We can talk it over." Vision came over timidly. "Mr. Stark, are you okay?" Vision took Tony very seriously and saw his tiredness. Tony smiled and said, "It's okay. It's easy to get tired if you spend too long with a group of brutal people. Don't look at me like this. I'm actually very strong and can live to at least 120 years old." Loki pushed Tony away, turned into Roger's appearance, and asked jokingly, "What else do those arrogant mortals plan to do? Want to give each Avenger a separate and luxurious prison?" Tony nodded. "Yes, that's about it, and the kind that doesn't pay." Loki turned into Joseph's appearance again. Why don't I go to the Global Defense Coordination Committee to play? I will use this appearance to order all members of the committee to buy Link's action figures. Tony smiled and said, good idea. It's a pity that Joseph himself is an irredeemable person. Vision suddenly asked again, has Joseph never contacted you, Mr. Stark, after that incident? Tony said, yes. Besides, he has no intention of communicating with me. This person is more stubborn than Steve. Vision groaned, no. This is not a good thing. He may have taken some action. I have a hunch. Loki sneered, little girl, can your hunch tell me what Link will look like when he grows up? When Tony heard what Vision said, he immediately realized that something was wrong. The next step to interrupt communication should be. Quicksilver quickly pulled Scarlet Witch over. Let me do it. Just go to my old man's office and take a look. Tony snorted, young man, you are not as fast as Jarvis who lives in a network environment. Let him go. Jarvis's calm voice suddenly resounded in the Hall of the Avengers. Okay, sir. Vision was looking around. She especially liked talking to Jarvis, for some reason. Tony muttered, I hope there's no bad intelligence, sir. I have some bad news for you. Damn it. Tony curled his lips and said, tell me, has Joseph already surrounded the Avengers base with his army? That's too bad. We don't have that many sandwiches to treat them. Jarvis said, Joseph has ordered the highest commander of the Global Defense Coordination Committee's self-prepared army to send people to South America to attack Nerlang there and create casualties among the people so that he can put the blame on Nerlang. The hall instantly fell silent. Tony cursed again. Vision frowned. Shenlong? Why is Joseph so angry with Shenlong? Tony had already learned the news from Zelda and said in a deep voice, it's not Joseph who is angry with Shenlong, but Ganon who is angry with Shenlong. The time is right, when Link is not here. He clasped his hands together with a cold face, then waved a falcon in the distance, gathering a new batch of Avengers members in front of him. Tony said, a harmless dragon and innocent people who haven't had time to eat lunch are about to die tragically at the hands of evil people. Now is the time for the Avengers to act. He said in a deep voice, Link and the others are going to save the dragon, and we have the same mission. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch clapped their hands happily, but Vision and Falcon were not very happy. After all, their understanding of war was higher than that of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Outside the base, two black cars of the Global Defense Coordination Committee rushed in directly. Guys who don't take care of the lawn should go to Siberia to dig potatoes. Tony looked at Loki with a smile. Want to play me? Loki nodded, guessing Tony's thoughts. You play all of us, sitting in the Avengers base, and dealing with these rude guys. We will be back soon. After Tony gave the order, he sighed. After all, I saved the president, but I was treated like this. Let's go. When several members of the committee inspection team with unfriendly faces came to the base hall despite being stopped, they saw Tony, Vision, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Falcon and others drinking tea quietly with pretentious expressions. The leading official said in a cold voice, Mr. Stark, you left our surveillance without permission. What do you want to do? Tony raised his eyebrows and smiled. Hey, handsome guys, come and sit down. Just treat this place as your own home. Don't be polite. This Stark's tone is very strange. Several men in black looked at each other, glanced around, and said in a cold voice, where are Link, Rogers, Natasha, and Zelda? Tony smiled. They went to Congo for a trip. Why? Do you want to get rid of them and buy some African fruits for you? The leading official said in a cold voice. The Avengers illegally left the country. Do you know what this crime is? Tony curled his lips. Whatever, it has nothing to do with me. Let them explain it to you themselves. By the way, I want to train these new Avengers. It's confidential. Please leave for now. The leading official had no intention of leaving. He knew that the army of the Global Defense Coordination Committee was heading to Uruguay. One of his tasks was to guard the Avengers before the plan succeeded. Tony, played by Loki, spread his hands. Since you don't want to leave, then stay here. Kids, start jumping 1, 2, 3. A man in black whispered to the leading official. This Stark is very strange. Is there something wrong with him? The leading official sneered. This playboy who relies on his father's foundation has a temper as changeable as a chihuahua. Who cares about him? They didn't notice that behind the base, a fighter plane flew silently into the sky. Tony had already put on Iron Man and said to Falcon, who was trying on the new suit, "How is the new suit?" Falcon pulled his pants awkwardly. "It's a bit tight." "Tony, it's okay, it's more slimming." Vision called up the information of the Global Defense Coordination Committee. 50 C-type fighters, a large number of ground-to-air forces. Crazy. Jarvis quickly searched for information about Neolang. Suddenly reported to Tony, "Sir, Neolang has been attacked." Tony glanced at Vision. "We can't wait any longer. Let's go." So the two who could fly quickly left the fighter plane and flew to South America at a faster speed. Falcon frowned deeply. How could the countries in the world allow the emergence of such an armed force organization? Quicksilver shrugged. "It's okay. The predecessor of the Global Defense Coordination Committee even has nuclear bombs. I heard that this organization was established on the basis of the World Security Council, and its policies are more radical." Scarlet Witch suddenly shouted, "Brother." Her voice was a little panicked. Quicksilver turned around. "What's the matter?" "That Tony left. This plane has no one flying." "No. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 354. Fei Luolang is abnormal, and thunder strikes violently. Link hadn't gone far when he had already endured 3 times of stronger resistance. Yaya had completely lost her sleepiness and was looking around vigilantly. Link had been fighting at every turn since he got off the plane, so Yaya couldn't rest well. The Sky Princess waved her hands, spreading a black curtain like shaking a veil. The binary star system Zelda mentioned bloomed in the black curtain and rotated at high speed, making a super fast rotation sound that made people alert, like a dart with a sharp edge cutting a piece of paper. Wherever it passed, these crazy and hideous monsters were cut in two. She celebrated a little. This was her first time to participate in a battle. Although the enemies were more and more weird and the intensity was stronger. However, the powerful power that burst out from the Sky Princess body because of the struggle against the power of Ganon's curse made the battle easier than before. Zelda's birds circled everywhere as the main reconnaissance force, expanding the battle range several times. Almost every sneak attack by these waves of fierce enemies would be discovered by the birds. Link took back his bow and arrows. He had already used up a bow, which was his spare bow. He seemed to be a little overwhelmed. The battle was fierce just now. He had used up all his arrows and could only shoot ice arrows in the end. This showed the intensity of the waves of monsters. He stood in the center and never fought hand to hand with the enemy again. After opening the god's perspective through the goddess's will, the enemies attacking from all directions were all within Link's observation range. If the attack from any side was too strong, he would immediately release 2 arrows infused with thunder power to support the whole situation. He was the core of the team at present. Natasha and Rogers could understand Hawkeye's mood of retirement. Perhaps in terms of experience, Hawkeye's archery level was not inferior to Link's, but Link's archery was more bizarre. Even in the blind spot behind his head, he could still fire a precise attack with his backhand. Pepper flew back to Link's side and touched his stomach. Link knew what he meant, so he put his fingers on the belly of the small Iron Man and infused his electrical energy into it. This Yahoo doesn't know how to distribute energy in battle. He has been outputting at full power. Moreover, the size of the small Iron Man is here, and the battery life is much smaller than Tony's, so the consumption is intense, and he needs Link's power to recharge. Bilibili woo woo. Peppa shouted excitedly, and Yaya looked at him with disdain. Peppa's beady eyes saw the power on the display panel surge, and felt that Link was super powerful, so he cheered. The Washang princess came over, holding the corner of her dress. There were some mud spots on her battlesuit, which she hated. Link had no choice but to throw a piece of lightning over, which landed on the Washang princess's skirt. The blue light burst out, and the Washang princess's skirt returned to its cleanest state. The Washang princess smiled and thanked Link, which was different from the other 2 princesses. The Washang princess always thanked Link. It is worthy of being the battlefield Zelda who is elegant in battle. Zelda's control glasses received the video feedback from the bird, and no large energy reactions were detected, so she breathed a sigh of relief. She looked back and saw the broken bodies of monsters everywhere she passed. It was raining heavily. The ground was covered with dirty blood. The girl would rather be drenched in the rain than step on such dirty things. Therefore, Link, who was at the center of the team, was responsible for laying a large amount of ice to pretend that the enemy was coming. Zelda smiled and waved to Link and shouted in a delicate voice, "Okay, Link. There are no enemies nearby for the time being." Link nodded. Indeed, the smell of Ganon was around, but it was much weaker. After all, they had killed so many people all at once until now, and it was effective. During the battle, the monsters also gave Link a large number of certificates of bravery and order. Others were getting more and more tired, but Link was just the opposite. He was getting stronger and stronger. The Sky Princess ran over lightly like dancing and asked, "How far are we from the place where Pharaoh Dragon is trapped?" Link played the flute, but the flute suddenly could no longer give him information about Pharaoh Dragon, which surprised him. At this moment, he suddenly felt Yaya poking him with her little claws. Yaya pointed to the east seriously, looking serious. Yaya was an oral dragon and had a strong sense of other dragons, especially in the rainforest, where they were close enough. The effect of the flute was far inferior to Yaya's sense, and Yaya was just like the weather now, magically very uneasy. Link could see that Yaya was enduring her anxiety. She told Link in a squeak. She felt that the current state of Pharaoh Dragon was very wrong. That's right, when the recorder could not send back the information of Pharaoh Dragon, it was a very bad sign. So Link asked Midona to ask everyone, there are stronger enemies ahead. Are you ready? Natasha took back the short stick that Tony customized for her and said in her magnetic voice, "Of course." Rogers also said in a deep voice, "We didn't come here to stand in the rain and hang out." Peppa still looked very energetic. Ahaha. When Link was about to urge the team to speed up, the ground shook again. Midona said with disgust, "Okay, come out. Let me see what other strange looking pets Ganon has. I have seen too many along the way." Although the bird is high above, it can observe many enemies in advance, and with Link's god's perspective, the enemy's whereabouts are undoubtedly exposed. But there is still a blind spot. That is the deep underground that Link and the bird cannot observe. Link's eyes turned into a transparent gold again. When he thought that a disgusting monster would break out of the ground, the situation was a little different from before. Not only was the ground shaking violently, but there was also a rumbling sound in the sky. It was obvious that the clouds with heavy rain were more oppressive than ever before. Boom. Boom. Two huge thunders exploded beside Link in an instant. The Washan Princess and the Sky Princess beside him blocked with swords and used the power of the Starry Night to quickly dodge. The two princesses were fine, and Link breathed a sigh of relief. The thunder that suddenly exploded beside him was obviously aimed at Link, and the others were rarely affected. The sword stabbed into the lightning, and the power of the holy triangle in the body was aroused, directly confronting the two strong lightnings. Link's face suddenly changed. This lightning was actually drawn from both the heaven and the earth at the same time, connected together. It contained a large amount of Ganon's cursed power. The thick clouds in the sky suddenly flashed a series of dense lightning, like the Milky Way, gathering into points of light, covering the rainforest. Boom. The lightning pierced the earth. Chapter 355. Another battle with Ganon. Link's resistance to electricity was very strong. He immediately felt the sky and the ground vibrating with unimaginable thunder power. He couldn't help but doubt, could it be that Ganon has recovered from his sneak attack? A large number of lightnings fell densely from the sky. Link thought it was not good. It was raining heavily, and the rainforest was humid. He could block it with his resistance to electricity. But others didn't have his physique, especially Natasha. Black Widow was just an ordinary person, and couldn't withstand such a thunder attack. Link's Master Sword tried his best to disperse the two giant thunders that struck in front of him, and then threw Midona and Fang on his shoulders. Amid the exclamations of the two little guys, white wings bloomed from behind, making Link's back also light up. He flapped his wings and flew up. He must block the thunder. Link rushed up to the sky dripping wet, and saw that the sky seemed to have gathered all the armed forces of the earth. a large amount of thunder fell from the sky, like an assassin sliding down from the beam, stretching across the entire rainforest. Such a scale, even Link was a little frightened. The sky seemed to be torn apart by lightning, and was about to fall. The noisy sound of thunder and lightning rang in Link's ears, and he could only vaguely hear the angry shouts of Midona, who was left behind by him. If this exaggerated electric screen hit the ground, the Avengers and Zelda would have no chance to escape. Link took a deep breath, and the figures of the 4 heroes suddenly appeared behind him. Mipha watched Link take out his Master Sword, hold it high in the air, and stare at the sky. As Appo frowned slightly, it seems that Link is in big trouble again. Such a humid place, it's really unbearable. Libel's 2 wings were conceited like a human. Link will always have things he can't solve. This is normal. Now it's our turn. Darkle's 2 huge fists hit each other in front of his chest and roared, "Go." Okay. I saw 4 figures shattered behind Link and transformed into light, like planets rotating around a star, and immediately like stars, entangled in the Master Sword. Feeling the support and trust of the 4 heroes, Link's courage became stronger. He raised his head and shouted, and the Master Sword in his hand, as if to compete with the thunder and lightning in the sky, also burst out with strong lightning, and the light even swallowed Link himself. Link. Zelda saw at a glance that Link wanted to protect them and fight against the large area of thunder in the sky that contained huge energy. But how can a flesh and blood body do this? She hurriedly summoned a flying bird, jumped up and lay on it, and ordered the bird to fly Zelda high into the sky to find Link. But before Zelda could fly 2 meters, Midona pulled her down with her golden red hair. "Don't go, you will only distract Link." Midona also turned into an adult. Although she was extremely beautiful, this mature and beautiful face was also scary when she was angry. Midona knew that if Link threw her and Yair down, it meant that the next action would be particularly dangerous, and he would not be able to protect them. She was angry that Link had abandoned her, but Midona still calmly grabbed Zelda to prevent anyone from interfering with Link. "Hulk." Hulk shouted at the sky. His wildness realized the current crisis, and the rage in his heart became more and more agitated. The violent rain curtain made it difficult for Rogers and Natasha to see Link's figure, but soon there was no need to look for him, because Link's body burst into a strong light, becoming the brightest existence within the visible range. Princess Washan was also worried about Link, but now was not the time for her to just sit and watch. There was a strong sound of electricity in her ears, and Princess Washan shouted, "Go find Pharaoh Dragon. Pharaoh Dragon is the Thunder Dragon. He can solve this disaster." Midona also realized, and hurriedly shouted to Yair, who was crying beside her, "Where are your kind? Take us to find him." Yair was wet all over. She wiped her tears and immediately flew in one direction. Midona shouted, "Everyone follow Yair." At this time, Link spread a large area of thunder power, and a sword blade made of thunder appeared above him, which was larger than the original form of the dragon scale great sword. It was raised high in the air. It attracted the electric screen in the sky that was bombarding the earth. Boom. Link's power collided with the dense electric light in the sky. The sacred triangle on his chest was shining brightly and flashing frequently. The hero's certificate gave him a force as turbulent as a river. The power of the Order's certificate was gentler, channeling the increasingly uncontrollable energy in Link's body, allowing Link to release power far beyond his physical limit. All along, Link's power growth has far exceeded his physical limit. His health points representing his physical fitness and his energy bar representing his strength are both limited to 30 and can no longer grow, because this is the limit of human physique. His strength growth at each stage is no longer like in the past, mobilizing all the energy in his body by 200 to 300%. But this time the opponent is too terrible. The sky finally exposed Ganon's breath. I don't know how Ganon did it, but he was able to attract the lightning power of this rainforest area. The power of nature is always the most violent. The energy of the individual and the world collided together. Link's body suddenly shook and swayed in the air. The Order's certificate and Mythos protective power covered every corner of Link's body, maintaining Link's body. Without Mytha and the proof of Order, Link would have been seriously injured just by exerting such a powerful force, not to mention fighting against the doomsday-like electric screen in the sky. Link's body trembled violently, and not only that, the indestructible Master Sword also shook rapidly. Ah! Link roared with all his strength, and took on the attack of the wave of lightning in the sky. He gasped. You have to know that this is a huge amount of lightning that bombarded the entire rainforest densely, which is equivalent to Thor's current energy released by emptying his body with all his strength 10 times. Link was excited. The first attack is always the most terrifying. If you can block the first attack, the second and third attacks will not be too much of a problem. Immortal, do you want to fight against the power of heaven and earth? Link's heart sank. Here it comes. A familiar breath. This is his nemesis for life. Ganon. When the thunder roared, the power of Ganon's curse, which was no longer concealed, condensed in the dark clouds above. An unprecedented lightning bolt struck down, and Link could only see a white light. But he knew that even 10 Links could not stop this giant thunderbolt containing the power of Ganon's curse. Even though his eyes were blinded by the lightning, Link had learned how to fight without relying on his eyes in the previous dark world. Almost instinctively, his body rubbed out bullet time. At the critical moment, Link dodged this giant thunderbolt. Boom. It hit the ground, and the land exploded, cracking piece by piece like bark. The team running to find Pharaoh Dragon felt the ground shaking suddenly, and then the land cracked. The crack was about 1 to 2 meters wide, and the depth below was invisible. Natasha looked surprised. What is Link fighting against? Princess Washang also noticed that the cursed power in the sky was no longer covered by the dark clouds, and said in a deep voice, "It's Ganon." Midona stared at it, and jumped over the crack in front of her. She was confused. Ganon had been injured by Link, and it would take time to recover. Even if the goddess revived, she only sent out 3 golden centaurs. It can be seen how badly he was injured by Link's sneak attack. And where did the power of that terrifying existence in the sky come from? How could it be so strong? And such pure lightning power? But Midona also knew that Pharaoh Dragon was the key to this incident. As long as Pharaoh Dragon was rescued, with this dragon representing lightning, it would be enough to reverse the current difficult situation. She continued to run, as if she didn't see the terrifying ground crack under her feet. The lightning above the dark clouds fluctuated, but it didn't attack Link again. The giant lightning in front of him flashed, and a human figure with dazzling white light appeared in the middle. Link's eyes adapted to the strong light. Seeing the human figure in front of him, he immediately knew that it was Ganon's human form. Ganon's body was still sleeping in a corner of the universe, and his true power had not yet recovered. The Ganon in front of him was a clone, just like the Ganon Link met on the corpse of the ancient god. Although Ganon was a human at the beginning, after the baptism of darkness, he no longer looks human, or has a human soul. The real Ganon is a hideous beast monster. But this clone is more than 10 levels stronger than the Ganon that Link had fought before. Faced with huge pressure, Link pointed his sword at the dazzling human figure in front of him, and took a fighting stance. No matter whether Ganon is a clone or the real body, where does this powerful thunder force come from? There is no need to think so much now. Just start the war. Thank you for your support by rewarding 100 starting coins for secretly watching. Chapter 356 Confrontation. Link immediately rushed forward in the air. Although he was the first to attack, his eyes were carefully observing the strange Ganon clone in front of him from head to toe. This Ganon was shining with dazzling lightning. His body was in a disordered state. Arcs were scattered, and it exuded an explosive texture. Let alone touching him, even just looking at Ganon, Link felt his eyes dry and stinging. It was much stronger than the one he encountered on the corpse of the headless god. But the strange thing was that the breath and fluctuations that Link sensed were not consistent with the traditional demonized Ganon's breath. More of it was the tyranny of the power of thunder. The edge of Link's sword was surrounded by stars of light, making the sword's power sharper and stronger than before. This was the sole power of the 4 heroes, following the sword of exorcism, fighting with Link together. With the protection of the 4 heroes, Link has the flying and precision of Libel, the strength and hardness of Darkle, the speed and anger of Urzapo, and the protection and companionship of Mipha. After the death of the 4 heroes, they still did not disperse in the soil, nor did they disappear from the world. They only barely attached to Link's body in the form of souls, to help Link defeat Ganon. Let this pure black completely disappear between heaven and earth. Link stabbed with his sword, and his eyes were already golden, as if they had lost their focus. But after he opened the god's perspective, he used the element of the world around him to observe Ganon more, rather than his eyes, so Ganon was no longer so dazzling. The actions of this strange Ganon clone, let's call him Thunder Ganon, with a flash of lightning all over his body became clearer. When Thunder Ganon saw Link attacking, he kept his arrogant attitude unchanged, but just stretched out a finger and pointed at Link's angry face. A little bit of light blue light condensed at Ganon's fingertips, tearing and ripping. Then it slashed downwards, and a shining vertical line appeared in the air, containing extremely terrifying power. The vertical line stretched out, and a ferocious electric python with 3 long horns rushed out from the vertical line, spitting out dazzling tongues, and rushed towards Link. Sensing the danger of the electric python from a distance, Link was not a reckless person, and his mind was clear every moment. The electric python rushed towards Link, with 3 2-meter long sharp horns on its head. In addition to being sharp, it could actually smell a fragrance. Poisonous. Link sniffed and saw that the light of the Master Sword in his right hand converged, and a crystal shield appeared in his left hand. Just as the electric python rushed over, the 3 spiked horns stabbed at him, and he played the familiar shield counter. Boom. A series of hot sparks popped out from the crystal shield. Although this fierce python was made of electric light and a high purity energy body, it was difficult to shield counter, but Link still caught it, and played a perfect shield counter. Link quickly retracted the crystal shield. Darkle's roar resounded in the Master Sword. Link raised his sword and cut the jaw of the electric python. The harsh and blinding lightning faced him, but Link's strength was also extraordinary. The proof of order guided the energy in his body to run efficiently and orderly, supporting Link in the battle. The incandescent sword light protruded and immediately cut off the head of the electric python. Behind Link, the power of Libel gathered, which had turned into pure white wings like an angel, stirring up a stream of wind. Link rushed forward quickly. Oh. Thunder Ganon looked a little surprised. Link was already very strong before. He attacked him once, causing Ganon's awakening and brewing power to disintegrate. But because he failed to hurt Ganon's vitality, it was only a matter of time for recovery. However, after not seeing each other for a while, Link's growth rate really surprised Thunder Ganon. Link at this moment is even stronger than Link at that time. It seems that this kid has spared no effort to prepare at all times in order to deal with him. Link's efforts can be clearly seen through his skyrocketing strength. But Ganon was only slightly surprised by this. If it were someone else, they might be afraid of the speed at which Link became stronger, but Ganon would not. When I truly wake up, no power can hurt me. Your efforts are in vain. Ganon saw that Link was like a sharp knife, splitting the electric python in two, and his momentum continued, still rushing forward. Just like before, he didn't feel any fear at all. A mortal who doesn't know how to be respectful. In Ganon's hand, a hideous looking big knife appeared, which looked very much like the weapon used by the Guardian of Hyrule. He swung the knife. Do you want to shield back? Facing Ganon's attack, Link habitually took out the crystal shield, but soon the mocking voice of Thunder Ganon was heard. Boom. The lightning sword was deflected and exploded directly. The lightning spread on the crystal Hylia shield like crazy snakes. There were violent lightning element everywhere, and the air was very unstable. Link was more alert. But now that the god's perspective was turned on, any sneak attack could not escape his eyes. Suddenly, Zizzy. Link felt numb all over, and Zappo's urgent voice came to his mind. Give me some time, so I can restore your lightning resistance. His body was numb, which reminded Link of the battle against the demonized Ivan. He almost died that time. It couldn't end like this. Link remained calm in his heart, and tried to move his body. Bullet time. At the last moment, Link used bullet time again, and the surroundings suddenly became dark, and Ganon's cold human face appeared more clearly in front of Link. The sacred Triforce on Link's chest, the triangle belonging to the Order Certificate, emitted a strong light, and enveloped Link's body. Supporting the short time stagnation in the bullet time, the power in his body flowed at a high speed, immediately flushing the electric poison that invaded his body. The rest could only rely on Zappo to help restore his own lightning resistance. Time recovery. Link moved away abruptly, and a black bow appeared in his hand, as if it was pulled to the extreme. It was no longer a metal arrow or an ice arrow, but an exorcist sword specially designed to kill evil demons. The Master Sword. Shoot at Ganon's head. Bang. Hit him right in the head. At this moment, Zelda and the others who had already discovered Pharaoh Dragon learned some bad news. Chapter 357. The Contaminated Pharaoh Dragon. Zelda and the others had already found the Pharaoh Dragon, panting. This thunder dragon originally had pale yellow scales as gorgeous as gems, and a wide and slender body, but now it was limp in the mud. This dragon, less than 2 meters long, was swollen all over, with rotten scales, and a white color like a dead fish, like a corpse. Pharaoh Dragon heard the sound of fighting in the sky, and cried out weakly twice. He had been soaking in the rain for a long time, and his body was almost completely covered by the dirty mud. Lightning flashed in the sky, and everyone knew that this was Link fighting a desperate battle with Ganon. Everyone was waiting for the Thunder Dragon to help Link, but now it looked like this. Zelda gently stroked the remaining dragon scales of Pharaoh Dragon. She had heard Link talk about the miserable situation when he first met Oral Dragon, but this Pharaoh Dragon had to wait longer and suffer longer. Fei Luolong's body was severely shrunken and festering at the moment, and one could even smell a strong stench of decay. There were even many leeches gathered under his body. If it weren't for his eyes still moving, everyone would have thought Fei Luolong was dead. Ye lowered his head, stretched out his snake-like tongue, licked Fei Luolong's cheek, and cried. Fei Luolong looked at Ye with regret, and his throat was faintly moaning, which was almost inaudible in the storm and thunder. But Ye heard it, and gnashed his teeth in anger. Midona said in a deep voice, the energy in the body of Pharaoh Dragon has been completely sucked dry by Ganon's curse. At this moment, the Ganon in the sky is using the power of Pharaoh Dragon to mobilize the power of thunder and lightning between heaven and earth to fight Link. Natisha was a little confused, but I heard that Shenlong's attack power is not high, and it is not good at fighting. Even if Ganon took away Pharaoh Dragon's power, it is impossible to be so overwhelmingly strong, right? Ye shouted angrily, looked up at the sky, then lowered his head and growled at Pharaoh Dragon. Midona could understand Ye's words, and her face was very gloomy. Shenlong is of course not good at fighting, but Ganon's powerful power is obtained by burning Pharaoh Dragon's life. Every time Ganon attacks, it consumes Pharaoh Dragon's life. In the jungle in the distance, a beeping sound suddenly came, and several red lights shone over. Princess Washang stood up quickly, exchanged a glance with Princess Sky, and said to everyone. Many guardians suddenly appeared around. Let's go and deal with them. After that, she left quickly, and then there was the sound of sword chanting, and the power of the starry sky. Guardians are a kind of mechanical weapons developed by the people of Hyrule. They can walk freely and help people resist enemies. Their heads can release light. There are 2 types of land walking and flying. Without exception, they have extremely strong attack power. Link was on the verge of death at the beginning, thanks to this group of guardians controlled by Ganon. Boom. The thunder in the sky was very strong. Everyone was startled and saw a tiny figure hitting the ground hard, and the place could feel the vibration. Zelda's face turned pale. Link is injured. Midona was also upset by the sudden change just now. Ganon and Pharaoh Dragon's life, 2 powers. No wonder the Ganon clone in the sky is so arrogant. Other particles condensed in her hands, like a tornado, rippling in her palms. Perhaps the power of the Infinity Stones can help Link. Link must have a helper. I'll go and help him. Fangar and everyone else, you guys take care of Pharaoh Dragon. After saying that, Midona quickly returned. Peppa will also fight. Peppa closed his visor and said in a childish but firm voice. Fangar looked at Peppa flying away like a round golden cannonball with a somewhat sad expression. Pharaoh Dragon's eyes had begun to reveal death, and he shouted vaguely in his throat, "You're still alive. Niaolang is also alive. It's great." Fangar shouted anxiously, "Link will come to save you." "Hang on. Link. The little guy who always bothers me?" Pharaoh Dragon couldn't help but recall the time when he was traveling in Hyrule and shook his head lightly. His life force had been cut off by Ganon, and his will had collapsed, so he gave up the idea of living in his heart. He looked at Ye weakly. "You and Niaolang must protect yourselves." Ganon has taken away my power and used his evil thoughts to arbitrarily attract the thunder element of heaven and earth in my name. Even if you die, you can't let Ganon take away your power again. Ye told Faralong that she and Nielong had been attacked by Ganon, but were rescued by Link. She concealed the fact that she had died once and continued to say to Faralong, Link will definitely be able to help you. Faralong shook his head in vain. Seeing the young Orlong in front of him reminded him of the appearance of the Hyrule continent when it was just born. At that time, he and the other two dragons were very young. Ye's eyes shed red tears, and she could feel Faralong's disheartenment. At this moment, the two dragons shook at the same time. The anger in Ye's eyes became more intense, and a dull roar came from her throat, which was completely different from her young appearance. She could sense that Nielong, who was far away on the other side of the earth, had suffered a serious attack, and Nielong's panic and confusion. South America, Uruguay. Nielong, wounded in the abdomen, fled in panic, but he was surrounded by a large number of the latest generation of military aircraft. Nielong screamed loudly, his scales were broken, his body was full of bullet holes, and purple blood was oozing out. He didn't understand why humans would hurt him. The people here looked like the Hylians, except that their ears were shorter. Logically, they were also a peace-loving race. Why would they use their weapons to attack him indiscriminately? Nielong was frightened by the crazy attack and flew up to the sky as high as he could to get rid of the pursuit of humans. But suddenly a round hole appeared in the clouds, and a missile was accurately positioned on his huge head. Bang! Exploded. Nielong fell down dejectedly. Ah! Ye let out a dragon roar, furious, with his hair and beard standing up. At this moment, Natasha also received Tony's message. She cursed in a low voice and then said, Joseph sent people to South America to attack Nielong. Roger's face was as cold as ice, unforgivable. He made up his mind. Yaya encountered the bad news of two of her only two companions in succession, and she was so angry that she couldn't control herself. Just when she was about to return to her original form and fight Ganon to the death with Link, she heard another miserable cry, as if it came from hell. She turned around in a daze, and Rogers and Natasha were also shocked. The Pharaoh dragon, whose body was severely swollen, scales were festering, and exuded a foul smell, twisted its body violently and screamed wildly, as if it was crying. Not good. Yaya was horrified to see that Pharaoh Dragon's scales were infected by black air, and Pharaoh Dragon's eyes were also covered by dark power. The two upright pupils trembled because of rage. Pharaoh Dragon was filled with anger for revenge for his companion's misfortune, and his heart was infected by the strong curse around him. He gradually transformed into an evil dragon. Thunder Cannon, who was fighting with Link, who was seriously injured in the distance, felt a new evil force in his heart, and a cold smile appeared on his face. The dragon also fell into darkness, and the progress of the Dark Age will be irreversible. Chapter 358 for Links. Link took a deep breath. His shoulder was charred and flashing with blue light. Mipha was helping him heal the injury on his shoulder. It was hit hard by the Thunder Cannon. Link felt half of his body was in pain and lost his intuition. The Order forced Link to regain his sanity, and he used the last moment to endure the pain and dodge the more deadly second blow of the Thunder Cannon. The Thunder Cannon came over, and their battlefield at this moment shifted from the sky to the ground. The nearby land was in a mess, and the thick rainforest trees with deep roots around them fell like wheat ears. Under the dual efforts of the Thunder Cannon and Link, the large area of rainforest around them suffered a fatal blow. And because of the conflicting tyrannical power of the two, this land was mixed with the aura of light and the cursed power of darkness. The collision of the two forces made it possible for this area to return to its original dense jungle within 1,000 years. Link's face was deep. He had just experienced the most terrifying side of the Thunder Cannon. In less than 10 minutes, the two fought for hundreds of rounds, and each time was almost a fight between life and death. Link adjusted his physical condition to the best. Even so, there were many moments when Thunder Cannon almost took his life. The debris on his shoulder fell off, and the blood scabs on the torn clothes faded, revealing fair skin. Link was exposed to the wind and sun all day, but his skin was in good condition. The shocking wound just now had been repaired by Mipha. Thunder Cannon whispered, "Your eyes are always so annoying and persistent." Link did not answer. Now was not the time to chat, let alone to rest. This kind of life and death duel, even if it was just a little less powerful, would lead to a change in the situation. He worked hard to practice swordsmanship and improve his strength. Everything he did was to prepare for the final battle with Ganon. He must destroy the shining god in front of him, but in fact he is a complete demon. Link. There was a shout from behind, and Link's long ears recognized the voices of Midona and Pepper. He frowned. What is Midona doing here? How could she be so ignorant? His eyes never left Ganon, ready to fight again at any time. And Thunder Cannon. It seemed that he was not prepared for a quick battle, standing there without making a sound. But Link didn't think that Thunder Cannon would be so obedient. Midona ran over. She had just tried to attack Thunder Cannon from behind, but was discovered by Thunder Cannon. She had to show up head on. Needless to say, just looking at the messy battlefield here, it was as if two modern armies had fought to the death. It was hard to imagine that the doomsday-like scene here was actually created by just two life forms. Midona came to Link and said in a deep voice, "The Pharaoh Dragon has been found, but his power and life source have been taken away by Ganon. Now, Ganon is using the life energy of the Pharaoh Dragon." Hearing this news, Link was immediately furious. Even the hand holding the sword was shaking. No wonder Thunder Cannon was so quiet and didn't suddenly attack when Midona came over. It turned out that he wanted Midona to pass the bad news to him smoothly. Damn. Link's eyes became colder and colder. Cannon, you want me to be angry, right? Then let you taste the power of my anger. Midona suddenly became smaller and flew to both sides of Link with Pepper, who was waiting seriously on the side. Midona said, "If there is anything I can help you with, just tell me." Link winked at Midona, and everything was said without words. The next second, Link pulled away and rushed again. "You want to provoke me and make me angry, right?" Link's body was also filled with lightning, like a ball of glowing tangled hemp. The blade was swirling with chaotic electric currents, and it was swung down suddenly, and a long lightning sword light flashed across. Thunder Cannon also released a large amount of lightning, which collided with Link's attack like a cannonball. Both of them were shocked, and the lightning exploded, and there was dazzling lightning everywhere. In the chaotic lightning, Link rushed in, dragging the Master Sword diagonally, and stabbed again. It seemed that he was really angry, and even his moves no longer changed, but he attacked directly. Just when Thunder Cannon was ready to take action and use Link's current repeated attacks to counter, a large number of weather particles in the air suddenly condensed in front of him, just like the venom of the Thunder Python just now, covering Cannon's body. The young Midona had a cold face, and the reality gem in her hand was only a small ball, and the remaining other particles surrounded the space around Thunder Cannon. Thunder Cannon bombarded violently, but the surrounding space was messed up by Midona's random use of the reality gem. His movement was hindered. At this time, Link slashed with a solid sword, without any intention of playing tricks. The purpose was very clear. He didn't think about anything else, just to kill you. Thunder Cannon was silent in his heart, and raised one hand. Facing Link's extremely sharp sword, he grabbed it with his bare hands. The arm that was shining with light easily intercepted the sword light that seemed unstoppable in the air. Thunder Cannon shouted, "Is this all you can do?" Of course not. Pharaoh Dragon was completely drained of his life essence by Ganon, and was in a dying state, but his power was used casually by Ganon. The pure and noble power of the dragon was used by this dirty guy. This completely angered Link. Suddenly, an identical figure appeared around Ganon's body. They all had long blonde hair and ears, holding a master sword. 4 clones were born around Ganon, and at the same time, they stabbed away. The power of the clones. For Link's power, 4 master swords that are specifically designed to counter evil. They slammed into Thunder Cannon fiercely. Thunder Cannon had been indifferent until now, and finally felt a little horrified. 4 master swords stabbed at the same time. And surrounded by the restraints of the reality gem, Thunder Cannon had nowhere to hide. Swish. They pierced into the body of Thunder Cannon at the same time. The 4 Links shouted at the same time, just as they poured their last strength into the body of Thunder Cannon, and destroyed it wantonly. Suddenly, Cannon's humanoid corpse carrying dazzling electric light suddenly screamed, and the sound was like a ghost. Suddenly, Thunder Cannon's body exploded, and the dazzling electric light rushed directly in front of Link. Even as fast as Link, he couldn't react. His eyes were burned by the arc, and fell into darkness. At the same time, his body was severely damaged, his chest felt stuffy, and he spit out a mouthful of blood immediately. Link was shocked a long distance, and crashed through 300-year-old trees before stopping. His hair was messy, his eyes were closed, and blood was flowing. The explosion of Thunder Cannon released tragic electric energy, which directly injured his eyes. Everyone is welcome to vote and subscribe to support. Chapter 359. The Master Sword is broken, the end of the road. Fourth update. Ganons are howling wildly all around. Link can't see anything now. Just as he is getting anxious, he suddenly remembers the perspective of God. A pair of bloodshot eyes suddenly appear with a golden light. Everything around him is brought into view again. At the place where the Thunder Cannon exploded, a red beast covered with Ganons is howling wildly. Its body seems to be some kind of deformed human tissue, pieced together with animals. It has a twisted human head, but its eyes are yellow snake eyes, and there is a standing mane behind its body. The brown-red color is undoubtedly the symbol of Ganons. This monster that looks like an alien dwarf is naturally inside the Thunder Cannon that looks like a god. The real body. Disaster Ganon. This is your real ugly appearance. Link picked up the sword and prepared to attack again, but found that the Master Sword slipped out of his hand in the explosion of the cannon and fell to the spot. Midona desperately tried to help Link get the Master Sword back. At this moment, Disaster Ganon's inhumane and crazy eyes caught Midona. Lightning condensed in his hand, and a lightning spear with uneven blades appeared. Screaming and stabbing, Link endured the injuries in his body, and a black bow appeared in his hand. He quickly shot an arrow, and rushed towards the twisted brain of Disaster Ganon. After the hasty arrow shot, the injuries in Link's body broke out. He vomited a mouthful of blood, and fell to his knees again. His hands and feet lost control. Miffa. Link screamed in his heart. The current Disaster Ganon revealed its true body. The original pretense of pretending to be a god to scare people, but now his fierce nature was exposed. The most dangerous thing is that he must return to the battlefield quickly. The body was full of lightning, and Link's face was in great pain with his eyes closed. He used electricity to stimulate his body again. Then he ran quickly with his feet. Disaster Ganon was hit in the head by Link's arrow, and his body was in a state of temporary stiffness. Midona picked up the Master Sword on the ground and threw it back without even looking at it. Even with his eyes closed, Link felt the familiar Master Sword and held it in his hand easily. Miffa was desperately healing Link's injuries, but Link had to get back to war mode, and this urgency once again deepened Link's injuries. The sword trembled slightly. When Disaster Ganon returned to normal, Link finally held the Master Sword in his hand and blocked Midona, standing with his sword straight. Disaster Ganon stabbed at him with his spear, and Link gritted his teeth and summoned the Crystal Hylia shield, knocking the spear blade away. His body sank slightly, and he lowered his body and stabbed Disaster Ganon with his sword. Time stop skill. Link locked his mind, and just as he used the time stop chain to freeze Disaster Ganon, Ganon suddenly flashed with lightning and dodged away, even faster than Link. Soon, another spear stabbed at him, and Link just raised his shield to block it. Disaster Ganon opened his mouth and spewed out a large amount of Ganon pollution, like a toad's tongue, entangled the Crystal Hylia shield, and threw it away. Ganon's true appearance, his crazy and ghostly characteristics were fully exposed. So strong. Link saw the tip of the spear flashing with lightning stabbing at him, and he was brave. The Master Sword also stabbed out. Ting. The two hard weapons collided with each other. Disaster Ganon and Link took 2 steps back at the same time. The Master Sword was shaking violently. Midona gritted her teeth and said, "I was actually scared by this monster that looked like a deformed monkey." Link, the previous attack method was effective. Try again. Then she sprayed a large amount of feather particles from her hand, interfering with the surrounding space. Link could only smile bitterly at this. His current physical condition was not enough to support him to summon 3 clones at the same time again. His recovery speed has always been very fast, but Ganon's self-protection just now really hurt Link's vitality. Pepper on the side also knew that the situation was urgent. Ganon showed his true face, which also meant that he was going to burst out with the strongest combat power. Pepper immediately released his strongest attack, the reactor on his chest, and directly released a strong light, and the light stabbed. Disaster Ganon blocked it with a lightning spear. The lightning spear in his hand was created by the life essence of Pharaoh Dragon. Unless the life is exhausted, the spear cannot be destroyed. Taking advantage of this distraction, Link ran quickly, even though the injuries in his body did not allow Link to continue fighting. But he had to persevere. The newly charged electric energy of Pepper was consumed in 3 seconds. Link took advantage of the brief opportunity to divert the enemy. He moved to the back of Disaster Ganon. The Master Sword in his hand burst out with a strong light of hatred and evil. Stabbed at the back of Ganon's head. At this time, a strange laugh came. I saw that behind Ganon's bald head, 2 rows of uneven teeth suddenly grew like a worm. He bit the blade of the Master Sword. Crack. With just one click, a crack appeared on the Master Sword. Link's heart sank. Disaster Ganon's limbs twisted abruptly. The lightning spear slapped Pepper away. Midona screamed, "Link, run." She used the other particles in her hand to condense into 5 or 6 cones and stab them, but as soon as they approached Calamity Ganon's body, they exploded. The reality gem now could no longer affect Ganon. Link was still stubbornly gritting his teeth to pull out the Master Sword that Ganon was holding. No. Calamity Ganon's lightning spear stabbed at Link's knee at an extremely fast speed. A ball of blood immediately burst out of the knee. But Link just frowned slightly, and he only noticed that the cracks on the Master Sword were expanding. "Do you cherish this broken sword so much?" Calamity Ganon opened his mouth behind him and made a hoarse voice, which was spoken in the ancient language of Hylia, and the sound was surprisingly terrifying. Link gritted his teeth and growled, "Give me back my Master Sword." Calamity Ganon just laughed strangely and stabbed Link's head with a gun. At the same time, the cracks on the blade of the Master Sword increased. Crack. Link opened his damaged eyes regardless of the pain. He watched his beloved sword vaguely, breaking into pieces. He kept his body with the sword, drawn and swung backwards. He dodged the fatal blow of the lightning spear. But in his hand, only half of the dull blade remained. The Master Sword that had fought with him, and traveled through the Hyrule continent, through countless hardships, was broken. "You will die with your broken sword." The ground at the feet of Calamity Ganon shattered with a bang. The power of the curse surged. The brightness around it dropped rapidly, and the air suddenly filled with the smell of burning. He was brewing the final blow to defeat Link. Seeing Calamity Ganon quickly gathering Link barely stood on one leg, and the magnetic grabber was activated, and several pieces of the broken blade fell into Link's palm. This sword has already recognized Link as its master. Even though it is sharp, others will tear its skin and flesh with a slight touch. But it lies safely in Link's palm. Even if it is broken, it is still protecting its master. Link stared at Ganon in front of him with bleeding eyes, and gently said to the Master Sword, "It's okay, Goddess Hylia can repair you." He carefully put away the Master Sword and the fragments. Even if the hero's sword is broken, the hero must continue to fight. "Without the Exorcist sword that restrains me, you are just a useless mortal." Behind Ganon, a giant demon shadow rose up, and a roar shook the area of hundreds of miles. Link took out the dragon scale sword, and prepared for the last fight. Midona gritted her teeth, and wrapped Link with other particles. She wanted to take Link away. The Master Sword was destroyed, and Link's body was scarred again. If he continued to fight by force, he would only die here. Even if she made Link hate her for the rest of his life, she had to help Link escape. But at this moment, a sharp long whistle came from the sky. A huge black dragon soared in the sky, roaring at the dark clouds. Welcome to subscribe, and vote for this work. Chapter 360, Link is dying, and a light appears. Disaster Ganon's sharp throat once again let out an indescribable piercing laugh, and said in ancient Hylian, "The soul of Pharaoh Dragon fell into darkness because of anger, and became my puppet. And you." The center of Disaster Ganon's arm cracked, and a large number of missile fibers and Ganon curse appeared, causing the arm to extend in an extremely disgusting way, lashing out like a whip. Link originally wanted to use bullet time to dodge, but his knee was pierced abruptly, making it difficult to move. With a little effort, he fell to the ground. Link summoned a Hylian shield-made device in his hand and blocked it in front of him, barely blocking the grasp of Disaster Ganon's deformed long claws. Ah! There was a scream. Link immediately recognized it as Midona's voice. When he turned around, he saw that the ground, where Midona was standing, had a large amount of Ganon pollution growing from the muddy and dirty soil, quickly wrapping Midona's body. Midona's body was burned by the Ganon pollution, and she screamed in pain. Gritting his teeth, he urged the reality gem to attack the Ganon pollution that bound his body, but the Ganon pollution immediately increased its strength. The face of the cyan-skinned girl immediately twisted in pain, and she screamed even more miserably. The Ganon pollution quickly covered Midona's face. Disaster Ganon stabbed again with a lightning spear, and time was running out. Link had few choices. Should he use this little time to escape, or risk his life to save Midona? He made a decision in an instant. Without thinking, Link threw the dragon scale sword in his hand, igniting a blazing fire, and hit the Ganon pollution that wrapped Midona. Bang! The Ganon pollution exploded, and Midona struggled to break free in a ball of filth. Link left the most precious time to dodge to Midona. He was pierced through the chest by the lightning spear. In this regard, all Link could do was to move his body a little to let the lightning spear avoid the heart. Wow! Another mouthful of blood was vomited. The lightning spear pierced Link's body, and the crackling lightning directly hit Link's body from the inside. His heart was trembling violently because of the electric shock. Midona saw Calamity Ganon grinning, and picked up Link, who was suffering from the electric shock, with a spear. She immediately whispered to the reality stone in her hand, and the edges of her eyes were red. Explode. Ether particles. Even if it destroys half of the earth, please kill Ganon. Just when Midona was about to activate the reality stone completely without considering the consequences, a slightly trembling voice came from behind. Peppa, bring Midona back. Peppa, who was panicking and helpless, heard that it was Link's voice. He was at a loss and subconsciously chose to obey Zelda. He rushed over and grabbed Midona. Midona panicked and was worried that the other particles would hurt Peppa. She quickly pulled back, but then she saw that Peppa was trying to grab her and escape. She immediately struggled furiously and said, "Let me go. I can't leave. Link is still there." Peppa wore a mask and didn't speak. He looked cold and heartless, but inside the mask, Peppa was already crying and crying. Ah, Link made a hoarse sound in his throat, and his body was in a mess. He was very good at relying on the power of thunder, but now he was almost dying from this power. He stared at the disaster cannon fiercely. In his hand appeared Mistidin, which he had not used for a long time, and he tried his best to throw it at the disaster cannon. But he was enduring the most severe test of pain. He used to be strong enough to lift 50 hulks, but now he had lost all his strength. He threw a wooden weapon, but it could only bend a desperate arc, and fell to the ground powerlessly. The head of Calamity Ganon turned around with a click, and looked at Link with lifeless eyes. "Guardian of Zelda, you are about to die. Remember this scene, and the world will fall into darkness every second from now on." Link was a little confused, and heard the shouts of Zelda and others in his ears. He knew that everyone was coming. Although he was very happy to see Zelda again at this time, he wanted the three princesses to escape quickly, as far as they could. When the princesses saw Pharaoh Dragon degenerate into a dark dragon and fly into the sky, they were feeling sad for Pharaoh Dragon, which should have been pure, but suffered such pollution and insult. But then, the three princesses looked at each other in a hurry and realized that something had happened to Link, so they hurried over. They saw this scene. There was a mark of corrosion from the poisonous fog on the cheek of Princess Washang, and there was blood at the corner of the mouth of Princess Sky. Rogers and Natasha also rushed over, and at this moment there were a large number of hideous monsters behind them, surrounding everyone. Midona pushed Peppa away, extremely angry, wanting the reality gem to explode, so that the force that could distort the earth could hit Calamity Ganon. She didn't care what the consequences would be. But Zelda hugged Midona and whispered, "This won't work. Many innocent people will be implicated." Midona was furious. "Implicate? Look who the boy with the body pierced through is. It's Link." "Zelda, at this time, how can you be so cold and indifferent? Link is dying." "No, I'm not indifferent." Hearing the voice, that suddenly became extremely ethereal. Midona looked back in astonishment, only to see Zelda's hair lifted up, as if there was a warm wind blowing from bottom to top. And Zelda's body, the body of the Sky Princess, and the body of the Peerless Princess, have already lit up with a soft light. It was raining heavily here, and there were bleak clouds in the sky. The ground was destroyed by the battle between Link and Ganon. This is a place that makes people depressed. But the light emanating from the three princesses made everyone feel as if they were suddenly on a grassland with soft sunshine, enjoying the breeze. When Link saw this, he became anxious and shouted, "Leave." He looked up at the sky, and the dark dragon was hovering in the clouds, absorbing the lightning. And Fang was chasing after it. The two dragons were entangled in the air, stirring up the dark clouds like rolling waves. Fang was suddenly knocked down by one of them, and bang, hit hard in the woods in the distance. The demonized Pharaoh dragon was still tumbling in pain in the sky. The three Zeldas walked up and looked at Link softly. "You saved us before. Now it's our turn to do this." Link shouted loudly, "Leave." A hoarse voice came from the throat of Disaster Ganon. He was a little afraid of the angry Zelda at the moment. Holding Link, who was convulsing in pain, Ganon shouted, "Link is in my hands. Three Zeldas, obey your fate and offer your souls." The three Zeldas opened their mouths at the same time, but only one voice came out, "Bow of Light." Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 361, Help from the Darkness? Reversal. Link shook his head. The Bow of Light, the peerless artifact that sealed Ganon. It was with the help of this divine weapon that Link completely defeated Ganon. But the bow disappeared after the last trace of light energy in Zelda's body dissipated. Although Zelda had been trying hard to restore the powerful power in her body, she had never made any progress. Even when she asked the goddess for help, the goddess was silent, as if she was dead. Logically speaking, this Bow of Light should not be here at all. So what price did Zelda pay to summon it? The three princesses were burning with a faint incandescent flame. Link knew very well that it was the power that could only burst out when life burned. Ganon could take away the life fire of Pharaoh Dragon and gain extremely strong power. The three Zelsis could also give Ganon a fatal blow at the cost of burning their own lives. The Washan princess trembled as she took the Bow of Light, pulled it to the full, and locked her eyes on Ganon. In an instant, the bodies of the Sky Princess and Zelda became illusory, like ghosts. A large amount of light was released from them, drifting to the Washan Princess. The light condensed into a line, and was placed on the illusory bowstring of the Bow of Light. The dark clouds above the three princesses suddenly opened up, revealing the clear blue sky, and a gentle sunlight was sprinkled down. Disaster Ganon's voice became even lower, and he said in the ancient language of Hylia, "Zelda, you should know that, if this arrow is shot, the lives of the three of you will be in danger." The souls of the Sky Princess and Zelda were used as arrow feathers, and the Washan Princess released it. The Washan Princess tightly grasped the bowstring and arrow feathers, and once they were released, the lives of the three princesses would be transformed into the purest and most powerful energy in the world at that moment, rushing towards the Thunder Ganon clone. Midona opened her mouth slightly, and looked at the resolute Washan Princess. Disaster Ganon was very afraid. In the last seal, it was better to say that it was defeated by Link than to say that it was broken by Zelda's last strength. He picked Link up, the blade of his spear across Link's neck, and his other dry and twisted hand grabbed Link's hair and pulled it. "Zelda, if you move even a little, Link will die here." His voice was a little trembling. Link shook his head, his eyes were a little dazed, and he said weakly, "Quick, leave. Can't do this. You can't do this." The body of the Washan Princess also quickly became illusory. She was very reluctant. "Don't worry, Link, we are sure to kill Ganon's clone instantly. You will be fine." The future world. Please. Her body paused, and her figure faded to almost invisible. The Washan Princess gave Link a gentle smile, which was full of sadness of parting. She couldn't hold on for too long, and the arrow in her hand continued to absorb the brilliance, First Zelda, then the Sky Princess. The figures of the two girls completely disappeared, turned into a little bit of light, and merged into the light arrow. Natasha and others watched the scene in front of them in silence. Midona lowered her head, and Peppa dug a mud pit and buried himself, not daring to look. Disaster Ganon was furious. I'm just an avatar. If you kill me, my real body will continue to accumulate power. You will die in vain. Leave it to Link. We can't think about what happens after death. Link. I'll kill him now. The light arrow is coming instantly. You can't hurt him anymore. Go. Princess Washan tried to delay a little time so that she could continue to look at Link. However, she really couldn't continue to bear the light arrow in her hand. The soul is more illusory than light Link's eyes were. So sad no matter what. And when Princess Washan was about to release her fingers, bang, a black thunderbolt struck down. Right in front of Princess Washan. Her body was already extremely weak, and suddenly this huge thunderbolt struck down. The light arrow, that was originally gathering the fire of life in her fingers, was suddenly strongly disturbed. Pop. The light arrow and the bow of light exploded into light fragments and disappeared in the air. The bodies of the three Zeldas returned to their physical form. The three princesses all vomited a large mouthful of blood with pale faces, and their injuries were extremely serious. Princess Link's heart almost stopped beating, and he saw the black thunder split a big pit in the ground. It raised muddy water and broken soil, and Midona screamed and rushed towards the Washan princess. The three princesses fell into the sewage. Their dresses were dirty, their hair was messy, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Link glared at the sky, the black dragon, that rushed down quickly, the fallen pharaoh dragon. It was he who seriously injured Zelda. Extreme anger made Link regain some consciousness, and even made him forget the pain. And Calamity Ganon looked at the demonized pharaoh dragon, that rushed down quickly from the sky with surprise, and shouted, "My servant. Well done. Come. Send down your more violent thunder, and destroy these stupid mortals. And you, Link, watch me carefully." Link struggled desperately, and the black dragon in the sky rushed down quickly. Natasha and Rogers had just helped Zelda up, but compared to Pharaoh Dragon, she looked so small. Rogers clenched his vibranium shield. It seems that it is really over. Let's just regard this experience of waking up after 70 years as a tired dream. Natasha was calmer. She was still desperately thinking about countermeasures and how to plan and act next, but after a moment of thinking, she also fell into despair. Link closed his eyes. He heard the annoying scream of Calamity Ganon. Kill them. Burn Zelda to ashes. Wait. The situation has reversed. Bang. Pharaoh Dragon's beard and hair were all erected, and with a roar, a very strong electric current burst out from his body, gathering into a thick thunder, which was more than 10 times stronger than the thunder that attacked the Washan princess. It struck down with a bang. However, it struck Calamity Ganon. Calamity Ganon had no time to react. The lightning was too fast. Suddenly it exploded on his body. Link was holding up Disaster Ganon in surprise, and he almost instinctively transformed into Shadow Wolf and jumped away. Disaster Ganon stretched out his two slender arms to block it, but was blown to pieces. Disgusting black and red mucus flowed out of the wound. Link watched in horror as the demonized Pharaoh Dragon rushed down, opened his mouth, revealed his sharp dragon teeth, bit the head of Disaster Ganon fiercely, and pulled it hard, tearing it apart. The slender black dragon body, like a snake, entangled the huge demon shadow behind Ganon. What happened? Pharaoh Dragon has fallen into demonization and become a member of darkness. The strong power of Ganon's curse, the decayed black scales and Ganon pollution, and the devil-like head, covered with ugly Ganon-cursed eyeballs, as if covered with tumors. All these show that Pharaoh Dragon is already a dark dragon, Ganon's slave, just like Ganon's other ugly monster puppets. But he turned the tables and attacked Calamity Ganon. Welcome to subscribe and vote for this work. Chapter 362, Defeat Disaster Ganon. Success. When he was dying, Feralong had hallucinations in his eyes. He saw the Hyrule continent that he loved so much, where he had once galloped across. The three dragons guarded 3 parts of the continent respectively, and they rarely met. But if they wanted to, they only needed to raise their heads and roar, and soon another dragon would roar in response. The three dragons were not brothers and sisters, nor lovers, but they were male and female in character. They were born almost at the same time as the Hyrule continent. After thousands of years of companionship, they were each other's best companions. Ferelon had endured hardships here for too long, and the fire of life had long been taken away by Ganon, becoming part of his evil power. Only a little bit of residual vitality supported Ferelon, whose body had begun to rot, until Yair appeared. Under Ganon's torture, he was thrown into the muddy ground of the rainforest like garbage. Ferelon was no longer able to hate anything, because dragons were not creatures that liked revenge and anger. But he was wrong. In that heart, the bad news of Niaolang came. Niaolang's panic, confusion, fear, and sadness surged like mud, stimulating Niaolang's already dead heart. After a long period of torture, a peaceful and kind dragon heart was finally completely ignited by anger. His heart and soul began to deteriorate, and because of the budding malice in his body, he was infected by the strong smell of cannon pollution around him. The new power made him miserable, soaring into the sky, and even Yaya couldn't comfort him. The pain intensified Niaolang's anger. He lost his mind, and turned into a furious dragon. Revenge, revenge, revenge. After knocking Yaya away, he was tortured by the remaining memories, and ran around in the clouds in the sky. A light suddenly burst out from the ground, and the familiar yet unfamiliar light breath further stimulated Niaolang's twisted soul. He was furious and a black thunderbolt struck down. But his heart suddenly struggled again, and the attack slightly shifted direction. He heard Ganon yelling at him. The curse power in his body not only greatly strengthened him, but also filled his heart with Ganon's conceited voice. Obey, 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 revenge, revenge, revenge. What are the consequences of angering a dragon? The hatred for Ganon surpassed the interference of the curse power. Pharaoh Dragon madly released a lightning bolt and struck it. His mind was in chaos, and there was only Ganon in his eyes. He didn't forget what Ganon had done to him, Oolong, and Niaolang. He bit Ganon with a big mouth, and entangled with a huge demon shadow behind him. Ganon's scream stimulated Pharaoh Dragon, and his collapsed heart made Pharaoh Dragon crazy. Thunder Ganon's head was torn, and he screamed and stabbed Pharaoh Dragon with a lightning spear. Pharaoh Dragon's body had lost the feeling of pain, but the power in the lightning spear that originally belonged to him made him unbearable and even more crazy. The dragon roared like crying. Link stared at the scene in front of him in a daze. The angry thunder cannon, with its huge shadow condensed into its body, turned into a giant python made of cannon pollution, and turned its head to bite Pharaoh Dragon's neck. The demonized Pharaoh Dragon had no intention of dodging, biting, and attacking wildly. This tragic battle, or the extremely manic biting, made Link dumbfounded. Pharaoh Dragon's scream sounded like crying. Link couldn't help but cover his ears. Crying? He immediately opened the god's perspective and asked for information from the world element around him. Sat. This demonized Pharaoh Dragon, which had fallen into darkness, screamed wildly. The originally noble dragon tore like a beast. This scene reminded Link of the scene when Oolong fought desperately. Under the effect of the god's perspective, Link felt the heart of the demonized Pharaoh Dragon. In that completely crazy extreme emotion, Pharaoh Dragon's soul core was crying. More importantly, Link felt that the demonized Pharaoh Dragon was snatching the power that belonged to him from Thunder Cannon. Midona ran around and quickly checked the three Zeldas. Suddenly she jumped up and shouted, her voice full of joy, Link, Zelda and the others are still alive. Let's run. Let Ganon be dealt with by this big monster. It's too dangerous over there. Rogers and Natasha also shouted at Link in surprise, asking him to come over quickly. But Link shook his head. Midona smiled and was stunned. Great, Zelda is fine. Hearing this news, Link completely regained his calm. A broken sword appeared in his hand, which was the master sword that was destroyed by Thunder Cannon before. Midona was shocked when she saw this. She rushed over, grabbed Link's long ears and said angrily, let's go. You don't still want to fight? Link said seriously, we must help Pharaoh Dragon. Midona pointed at the demonized Pharaoh Dragon and the giant python transformed by Ganon in the distance and said, look carefully, Pharaoh Dragon has been demonized. He is no longer the dragon. He is very dangerous, and God knows what he and Ganon are playing. Let's leave quickly, and when your injuries are healed, we will come back to seek revenge on Ganon. Let them fight each other first. No. Link looked at Midona. Midona had helped Link repair the injuries on his eyes. The edges of his eyes were full of blood scabs, but his vision had returned to clarity. This is a chance. I can still fight. Midona's face was furious. She took a deep breath. Just when Link thought Midona was going to scold him, she sighed softly and said, "Okay. If I get hurt next, you have to compensate me for my whole life." Midona turned to Rogers and shouted, "Protect Zelda." Rogers was puzzled, but out of his instinct on the battlefield, he nodded. Link put his hands together and blew a loud whistle. Fang roared and flew over from a distance. She heard that it was Link calling her. Link spread his wings and flew into the sky with Midona. Standing on Fang's head, Link gently stroked Fang's big dragon horn and said, "Fang, let's help Pharaoh Dragon defeat Ganon." Fang nodded. Link shouted, "Go." Then he said to himself, "Mithra and everyone, lend me your power again." Mithra's power is always available. No problem. Humph, of course. Let's teach Ganon a lesson. The four heroes spoke at the same time, and Link's mind was in a mess. At the same time, Link's body was pulled, and 3 clones appeared. Since the original Master Sword was broken, the other Links also had broken swords. Fang roared and rushed away. Feralong took the power from Thunder Cannon. Link has already caught it. The 4 broken swords were put together, and the energy condensed in them, turning into a vortex, gathering into a white hot spherical light. I will use this move named by Zelda to deal with you. Divine Light Assault. At the same time, a Zappo appeared above Fang's head, aiming at Thunder Cannon's head, pinching his fingers, and gathering the power of all the heroes. Click. A snap of the fingers. A huge beam of thunder was drawn out from the dark clouds. It suddenly struck down. Boom. At this time, Pharaoh Dragon also raised his head and roared, and his body released strong black lightning. 2 kinds of lightning, one black and one white, merged together. The demonized Pharaoh Dragon screamed shrilly, Thunder Cannon exploded, and the cannon pollution and Pharaoh Dragon's vitality were separated by the 2 kinds of thunder with 2 opposite properties. Pharaoh Dragon's life source, that little bit of light was gathered into Pharaoh Dragon's body, and the festering parts of his body began to recover. And the cannon pollution exploded, revealing a dark red shadow in the middle. That was the fragment of Ganon's soul. The cannon pollution desperately gathered, trying to wrap the dark red shadow again. Midona shouted angrily, "So, you are so annoying." The other particles flew out like a tornado, separating the cannon pollution from the dark red shadow in the center. Now is the time. The divine light attack was suddenly released, and a white hot beam pierced the dark red shadow. Hit it hard. The dark red and pure white colors attacked each other, and then penetrated each other. The surrounding space was distorted, and the soil underneath exploded. The high intensity energy of the 2 escaped from it, and gushed into the sky. The whole world was surprised. Whether it was the southern hemisphere or the northern hemisphere, whether it was day or night, the sky suddenly flashed with dark red or pure white light. People all over the world were looking up. Tony looked at the sky in confusion, and Jarvis' voice came, "Sir, there are 2 inexplicably powerful forces colliding with each other on the other side of the earth." Tony muttered, "I feel that Link is doing something. Don't care about him." Jarvis speeds up, "I don't want to see Niurlong turned into a dragon when I go over." "Okay, sir." Hawkeye and his pregnant wife were basking in the sun in the yard. At this moment, they opened their mouths in horror and looked at the sky. Hawkeye was stunned for a moment, put his hands on his hips, then nodded and said to his wife coolly, "Look, I've only been retired for less than 2 hours. The world is in chaos, and I'm helpless." In fact, Hawkeye was very nervous. What happened to Link and the others? What happened again? Are there any casualties? Looking at her husband who was pretending to be cool, Mrs. Hawkeye showed her gentle smile, as if she was looking at her 4th child. Link supported an injured leg, and stood on Fang's head. The Master Sword in his hand was dim no matter how much energy Link poured into it, which made Link sad. Midona screamed, and the other particles exploded, shattering the surrounding Ganon curse. Fang rushed in with Link. The surrounding space was distorted, and the dissipated power was surging. Midona puffed up her face, and tried to control it to stabilize it. She held the sword in her backhand and held the dragon horn with the other hand. With the help of Alon's momentum, the broken sword pierced into the two kinds of light. Explosion. Ganon's scream disappeared into the sky. The dark clouds in the sky slowly began to dissipate. In the dazzling light of the explosion, Yaya roared and rushed out with Link and the cheering Midona. The heavy rain stopped. Midona's happy scream resounded in the sky. We won. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support this work. Chapter 363, Link's Strange Transformation, Pharaoh Dragon's Revenge. We won. Midona raised her hands and screamed. The battle was too depressing. After Link pierced Ganon's soul with a sword, her emotions were completely released, and she was too excited to restrain herself. But her body suddenly shook, and she cried oh and fell down. Looking down, she saw Link slumped on the dragon head with his eyes closed. Don't be exhausted. Midona flew over and touched Link's chest with her two small hands. She felt the steady heartbeat and breathed a sigh of relief. Soon, light blue flames emerged from Link's body and began to warm his body inside and out. There was a vague figure of Mipha, gently hugging him. Yaya was startled, and his two big red eyes, like cockeyed, turned upside down, hurried to see Link's condition. Midona also sat on the scales and relaxed. She patted Fang's head with a smile and said, Link fell asleep because he was tired. It's okay. Let's land quickly. Rogers and Natasha kept looking at the sky, watching Link's final battle with Calamity Ganon. After a brilliant explosion, the red dragon flew into the sky. Natasha's shoulders slumped. It's over. Huh. I almost thought we were finished. Rogers was ready to die at that time. He nodded. Before the last second, I thought so too. But, the dark dragon in the sky, the demonized Pharaoh dragon, suspended in the air, it was like a complex galaxy dust. The dark clouds in the sky gradually dissipated, and the rainforest was shining again. Rays of sunlight shone through the separated clouds, and shone on the demonized Pharaoh dragon. Pharaoh dragon looked at the reappearing light with a chuckle, his body trembling slightly, and a vague sob came out of his throat. Ah! Fang called out to Pharaoh dragon twice. Pharaoh dragon shook his head in pain, and with a sharp and long howl, he rushed away, and disappeared in the sky in a blink of an eye. Midona was stunned and said, the demonized Pharaoh dragon is so strong. Hey, yeah, how about you also demonize one? That would be cool. Yeah glared at Midona above her head with contempt, and then called out twice. Midona was dumbfounded. Pharaoh dragon. Is it going to save Nia Long? Now that he has fallen into darkness, Pharaoh dragon will not stop. He wants to let the whole world see the hatred that supports him at the end of his life. Midona curled her lips and said, let him go. It's better to make a big fuss. These earthlings should learn a lesson. Suddenly, the light blue flame on Link's body, which symbolized the hero, disappeared, and was replaced by a flowing glimmer. Midona and Yaya felt the movement. Midona said seriously, the enemy this time is too strong, and the battle is unbelievably difficult. I really don't know what kind of spoils Link will get. On Link's left wrist, the pattern of wings floated gently, as if it was about to fly out. Tired Link was sleeping, but his body was tempered, and became stronger in this fateful battle. Woo wow. Midona suddenly screamed, scaring Yaya. Midona shouted in a panic, Linky, Yaya roared, how is Link? Tell me. In the office, Joseph sprayed perfume on his body, to cover up the rotten smell emanating from his body. His face was pale, but there was still a smile on his face. He had just talked to his child. The spirited voice in the receiver made him feel excited. Even if there was a bloody and disgusting thing on his back, it was not enough to ruin his mood. Ganon's whisper came from his heart, capture Nia Long. Joseph silently said to the mysterious master in his heart, yes. The phone rang again, and Joseph looked at the nervous secretary beside him, and hung up the phone silently. Because of his sudden extreme order, other senior members of the Global Defense Coordination Committee were very surprised, and they called to question Joseph. They were worried that this excessive action would cause the relationship between the Avengers and the Global Defense Coordination Committee to break down. Joseph had a sneer on his face, waiting for the army he had arranged to bring back the body of the dragon, so that he could offer it to the Cannon Demon King who saved him and his daughter. The camera came to the sky above Uruguay. This is an ordinary village with neither famous scenic spots nor famous specialties. The most proud thing for the local villagers is just a Portuguese second-tier football player who came out of the local area. And this small town was bombed by the Global Defense Coordination Committee. Any bomb dropped by any one of them is twice as much as the income of the whole village who worked hard for 10 years. The town suddenly became a ruin, and the fighter planes flew away. In the sea of fire, a little boy ran out, struggling with flames all over his body. He didn't know what happened. Everything he had was ruined. The inhuman pain suddenly disappeared, and the little boy's eyes were dried up by the flames. He fell to the ground with a blank look, and his body slowly turned black. The pilot replied indifferently, "The mission is accomplished." The shells were specially made to imitate the dragon's breath of a dragon, so that it would be convenient to frame the Erlang. They received the next order, to join the Erlang's roundup. At this moment, a pilot caught a glimpse of a black object approaching rapidly in the distance. "What is that?" The pilot's pupils dilated. Even when he was slaughtering civilians, he was indifferent. But at this moment, his expression became terrifying. It was a strange creature with a pitch black body and tumor-like eyeballs all over its body. The voice was extremely shrill, and it had no wings, but it soared into the air. It roared and rushed over. The fighter group hurriedly started emergency encounter preparations, and the artillery locked on the furious feral lung and immediately tilted past. Bang, bang, bang. The flames exploded into a ball, drowning feral lung's figure. The pilots all breathed a sigh of relief. They thought the pharaoh dragon had been killed. But at that time, the ferocious dragon still frightened them. They thought they had seen a monster from hell. Ah. The roar almost resounded throughout South America. In the distance, Tony, who was speeding, sensed an inexplicable and terrifying energy, and couldn't help frowning. "What the hell is this again?" Vision felt it more clearly, and said to Tony very seriously in the strong wind, "Boss Stark, I analyzed from the database that this is a monster belonging to Ganon, with a unique fluctuation." Tony's face became even gloomier. The demonized pharaoh dragon was full of flames, sweeping the dust of the explosion. The clear sky suddenly dimmed, and a huge black thunder struck down. Bang! The pilot, with a horrified face, was immediately struck by lightning, and he became a charred corpse like the child he killed. Then he exploded with the fighter plane. Welcome to subscribe, and vote to support this work. Thanks to Minecrafter 100 starting coins for support. Thanks to Zyanatang 246 for 100 Kidian coins. Thanks to Osis Heyosohu for 588 book coins. Chapter 364. Why did the princesses cry out? While Link was unconscious, he saw a dwarf wearing a grotesque mask with complex colors, smiling sharply at him. His head was splitting, his eyes were dizzy, and it seemed as if the world was shaking. He was attacked and fell down, and saw the moon in the sky. The moon was a strange and hideous smile full of emptiness, looking at the earth with malice. Ah! Link screamed and woke up, and found himself lying on the bed. Midona and Yea were bullying Peppa at the end of the bed, trying to stretch Peppa's chubby body to the extreme. For some reason, Link felt that his voice was strange and sharper, probably because he was frightened. He was in pain all over, but after a quick check, he found that his body had been healed by Mifa. The three little guys were startled by Link's scream and all flew over. They shouted in surprise, "Link, brave man, you're awake." Yea quacked happily like a little duck, rushing to Link's face and rubbing it. Link smiled and touched the heads of the three little guys. When he reached out to touch Midona, he was almost bitten by her sharp teeth. He was suddenly stunned and shouted, "Princess." He quickly turned over the quilt and jumped out of bed. Hey, why is the bed so high? With a thud, Link landed gently on the ground. On the smooth floor, he could vaguely see his face. He was wearing a hospital gown and his face was pale. But, Link blinked, and a golden color appeared in his eyes. No one can see their appearance with their own eyes, but Link can do it through the perspective of God. This cute cat-eyed little boy who jumped out of the bed with a stunned face and messy hair is. Midona smiled and said, "That's right, you finally found it. You have become smaller, little Link." Peppa walked over happily and compared his height with Link. He used to be able to stand on Link's shoulders, but now he is half of Link's current height. Link has become a little boy of 6 or 7 years old. Woo Meng. Is this what you looked like when you were a child? So cute. No wonder Mifa fell in love with you when you were little. Link felt a little dizzy. What happened? He just had a fight. Of course, this fight almost drained his body. Did he become a dwarf because of overdrawing his body? No. Becoming a dwarf will definitely damage the body. And Link, at this moment, no matter his internal organs or the activity of his breath, is indeed a child of 6 or 7 years old. But his strength has not been reduced. He breathed a sigh of relief, and licked his cheek affectionately. His worry about Zelda surpassed everything. He hurriedly ran out barefoot, and asked Midona to help him lead the way. The ward of the 3 princesses is next door. A beautiful doctor with a cold look just finished taking notes. He looked up, and saw an extremely cute little boy rushing in with 3 strange creatures. The beautiful doctor gathered her hair, lowered her body to stop little Link, rubbed Link's already messy hair, smiled softly and said, "Kit, don't mess around here. The patient has just woken up, and can't be disturbed." Midona helped Link explain, he is the boyfriend of those 3 girls. The beautiful doctor burst into laughter, rubbed Link's little face happily, and said with a smile, "Wow, is that so? This child is so cute." Little Link was helpless, and suddenly turned his body. He turned into a shadow wolf. The beautiful doctor exclaimed, little boy, turned into a puppy." Midona laughed out loud. Link was stunned, only to see that his body in the shadow wolf mode had also changed. The majestic black wolf actually degenerated into a chubby little wolf. So cute. The 3 Zeldas, strangely at the same time, frowned and propped themselves up in confusion, turned their heads, and looked at the source of the noise. Little Link Wolf bypassed the beautiful doctor, and pounced on Zelda's bed. Zelda was stunned and shouted, "Where did the puppy come from?" Huh. He turned back into a little boy. Zelda shouted again, "Where did the little boy come from?" Little Link was speechless. He had never met Zelda when he was a child, and his eyes were very strange at that time, like cat eyes, and his hair was messy and unruly, which was indeed very different from when he grew up. "Link, how did you turn back into a child?" The Sky Princess rubbed her eyes and saw little Link. She and Link grew up together as childhood friends, so naturally she recognized what Link looked like when he was a child. Zelda opened her mouth wide. "Oh my god." The Washan princess was also surprised. So cute. The 3 princesses saw such a little Link and gathered around him. Little Link was a little scared by this sudden enthusiasm. After a while of tossing and turning, little Link did not give up and tossed his messy hair while asking the 3 princesses about their health. He also rarely blamed the 3 princesses for giving up their lives and fighting Ganon. The 3 princesses looked at each other with smiles in their eyes. This gentle look made Link feel the heavy responsibility on his shoulders even more. At this time, Rogers and Natasha came in. Zelda asked hurriedly, "Natasha, how long have we been unconscious?" "Well, for a long time." Natasha turned up her sleeves, glanced at the watch on her wrist that didn't exist at all, and smiled. "At least 25 minutes. The 3 princesses and Link. Rogers also smiled, and for some reason, his expression was a little depressed. "Your body's recovery ability is really strange. You were in a very dangerous state, but you were fine in the blink of an eye." This is the base of the African branch of SHIELD. The base can only send a few female nurses and female doctors to help you change your dirty clothes. Midona asked on behalf of Link, "Is there any news about Pharaoh Dragon now?" Natasha nodded and turned on the local news on the TV in the ward. In the picture, the dark dragon shuttled through the group of fighter planes, lightning flashed, and a large number of fighter planes were shot down. Iron Man and Vision on the side looked at the scene in front of them awkwardly, and Nilong, covered with bullet holes, lay on the sea surface and slowly sank to the bottom of the sea. Iron Man and Vision hurriedly dived into the water to find Nilong. Felilualong raised his head and roared, unable to control his violent power, stirring up the waves and dark clouds. A large number of people fled in fear. The army was gathering, and the camera was shaking. Natasha looked at the young Link, and felt that her next question was too cruel, but after hesitating for a while, she still asked, "Link, if Felilualong continues to destroy, become a hazard to the earth, as an Avenger, what will you do?" Welcome to Vote and subscribe to the genuine version to support this work. Chapter 365. Faced with Natasha's sudden question, everyone was silent. Although Link has lived on Earth for a long time, he is indeed an outsider from another world. Link does not like power and has no other greedy desires that are detrimental to the earth, so the two sides are generally friendly. But whether it is his long ears or the powerful strength that earthlings cannot possess, it always makes some earthlings feel alienated. The Avengers of course completely trust Link, but Natasha can't forget the scene when Link decisively shot Rose. Without hesitation, after Zelda was injured, he immediately took Rose's life with an arrow. Although Link is simple, he also knows what the consequences of doing so will be. But he did not hesitate at all. He did not hesitate to anger the most powerful country on Earth. This attitude of rushing to the crown is quite admired by Natasha. But Natasha also knows that many people, including Nick, Coulson and other S.H.I.E.L.D., have a big question. If Link has a friend who is an enemy of the Earth, what actions will Link take? In this regard, even within S.H.I.E.L.D., an analysis of Link's past actions was made. They came to a cruel but true conclusion. As a princess of a fallen country with a population of only 2 people, if Zelda wanted to establish the Hyrule Kingdom regime on Earth, Link would definitely help. If Pharaoh Dragon became a disaster for the Earth, the power of the Earth must destroy Pharaoh Dragon. Would Link help the Earthlings to uphold justice and kill Pharaoh Dragon, or would he forcefully stop all Earthlings from daring to harm Pharaoh Dragon and let Pharaoh Dragon continue to destroy like this? When everyone was silent, Link said without thinking, "I will not allow anyone to harm the 3-headed dragon." After hearing this, Yaya licked Link's tender cheek happily. Rogers and Natasha also felt a chill in their hearts when they heard the news. Sure enough, it's an outsider. At this time, Midona broke the silence and said angrily, "What are you discussing? Why are you like that strange wizard ancient one, asking some weird questions?" Midona suddenly raised the Yaya beside her and said, "Look carefully, this kind of creature doesn't eat yours, doesn't get along with you, and doesn't like gold and silver jewelry. This little dragon is already the worst, but its only shortcoming is that its personality is a bit bad. It just likes to roast other people's hair. This creature is completely harmless, okay? Why are you worried that the dragon will become the enemy of the Earth?" Natasha said in a deep voice, "The Pharaoh Dragon has been demonized and become a monster with serious destructive power. Like the Hulk can still be controlled by Banner. And if this demonized dragon wants to destroy the Earth, who will control it?" She once interrogated Loki, who was also bewitched by Ganon. Loki admitted, "It is a crazy process. People will not be able to control themselves. They yearn for killing and blood. That kind of madness will destroy me and everything I see. It's like a drug addiction." This record is still kept in the archives of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now everyone knows that Pharaoh Dragon is a creature from Hyrule. If he becomes an enemy of the Earth, then Link and Zelda and other heroes will be like the Japanese living in the United States after the Pearl Harbor incident. They will suffer a lot of misunderstanding, suspicion and even persecution. This issue has been put on the stage. As Link's friends and comrades, we must take this issue seriously from now on. Bruce, Steven, Tony, I all believe that Link is a guardian of the Earth. But there are too many people on Earth, and there are too many people who hate, fear or even hate Link, an alien. We don't want Link and you to get hurt. Natasha knew that the atmosphere in the ward had dropped to freezing point because of her question, but she had to ask Link in person. Midona looked at Natasha angrily, but what Natasha said just now was sincere enough. I have to say that this woman is also very courageous. At this time, Princess Washan held Link's hand and said with a smile, "It's okay, you don't have to worry about this happening." "Yeah." Zelda nodded, rubbed Link's little head, and said to Rogers and Natasha calmly, "This is indeed a problem, I think." Zelda supported her chin with her fingers and brewed words for a while and smiled. "It's not that troublesome. In fact, you think too much." Natasha was stunned and saw Yaya flew in front of the TV and poked the screen twice with his claws. He grinned at Natasha. The Pharaoh Dragon on the TV was twisting its body in pain and madness, rolling in the sky, messing up the clouds. Countless dark lightning struck in the sky, which looked particularly scary. But Rogers and Natasha also saw something wrong. They could feel that the Pharaoh Dragon was desperately suppressing itself and not letting the violent power hurt innocent people. The roars came through the TV and roared in everyone's ears. Fangire drooped her ears. She could understand Pharaoh's pain. Zelda said, "You don't know anything about the three-headed dragon. Don't worry. I swear as the Princess of Hyrule that, even if Pharaoh falls into darkness, he will never harm any innocent life. Just watch." Pharaoh roared, flew up to the clouds, and then disappeared. The people who were fleeing in fear on the ground did not wait for the expected disaster. Looking at the sky in astonishment, they saw the dark clouds fade away, and the light reappeared. The Sky Princess smiled and said, "The nature of kindness will not be easily annihilated, even if it falls into darkness." Zelda said, "You misunderstood Pharaoh." Then she chuckled. Back then, he was disturbed by Link again and again. He could have killed Link with a wave of his claws, but he didn't do it. This kind of creature is not a villain in nature. Natasha looked at the demonized Pharaoh flying away in astonishment and asked, "Where is he going?" From the situation just now, she really thought that Pharaoh would continue to destroy. The madness and brutality that overflowed the screen were even worse than Hulk's. Natasha didn't expect that Pharaoh Dragon would suppress his desire to destroy and turn around and leave. Seeing the ugly Pharaoh Dragon on the screen passing through the clouds and leaving, Natasha finally understood why Pharaoh Dragon was called a dragon by the Hylians. Midona said, "Of course, go to a place without humans, such as Mars. Vent out your violent power." Link looked at the Pharaoh Dragon disappearing on the screen. He said silently in his heart, "Be patient for a while, I will definitely save you." At this moment, Tony and Vision struggled to lift the Nilong out of the sea. Both of them were covered in ice. Seeing the bullet holes all over the body of Nilong, it can even give people goosebumps. This cruel injury made Yair grit his teeth and Link's eyes were murderous. Roger saw all this. Link's attitude just now made Rogers know that he had to do something. Welcome to subscribe and vote for this work. Please support genuine reading. Chapter 366, Choice. Feral Ong left, and Fang flew back to Link's shoulder. Now that Link had turned into a child, Fang shrank even smaller, making it easier for her to lean on Link. Rogers said softly, "Although this conflict has been resolved, Natasha's question and your answer are still meaningful. If you encounter a similar conflict, you will choose to be enemies with the Earthlings, right?" Midona was a little annoyed. "Why do you always like to pick a fight? Do you think I won't hit you, just because you have big muscles?" Rogers smiled, turned around and left, gently closed the door, and said goodbye. This departure made the atmosphere, which had just been relieved, lower again. Natasha deeply regretted, "I really shouldn't have said too much." Then she said to Natasha and Link with apology, "I'll go find Rogers," and left in a hurry. Link raised his eyebrows. With this trend, could it be that the first crack in the Avengers was because of him? Link. Zelda sighed and suddenly cheered up again. "By the way, as the Princess of the Kingdom of Hyrule, although I have always lived on Earth, I have never made a state visit to the leaders of the governments of various countries on Earth." Midona made a face. "A country with only 2 people. Princess Washang suddenly felt a little depressed, "And here, I'm the only one." Princess Sky took her with one hand and Zelda with the other hand, and smiled. "It's okay. You still have us, and Link. Everything is not over yet." Link looked at Princess Washang, and his worries about the Earth disappeared immediately. It doesn't matter if the relationship with the Earth breaks down. Anyway, his goal from the beginning to the end is to defeat Ganon. He jumped off the bed and vaguely felt that there was a new power in his body, which seemed very powerful. He must quickly familiarize himself with this new power. At this time, Natasha caught up with Rogers. He shouted, "Captain." Rogers turned around and smiled. "Why did you follow me?" Natasha asked. "You are not dissatisfied with Link's answer. There is nothing we can do about it. He is not a native of Earth, so there is no need to be on Earth's side." Rogers suddenly interrupted Natasha and said with a smile, "You not only misunderstood the dragon, you also misunderstood me." Natasha shrugged. "I'm a little dissatisfied with what you said. Tell me, what are you thinking about?" Rogers said. "Link said that, if the Earthlings want to destroy the Pharaoh Dragon, he will definitely stop it. This kind of words does not make me dissatisfied. He has saved the Earth several times, and there is no need for me to damage our friendship for such an issue. It's just that, as Earthlings, we must make a decision." Natasha waited for Rogers to continue speaking. She thought that Rogers left because he was dissatisfied with Link's attitude. It seems that Rogers has other ideas. The smile on Rogers' face disappeared. We can't force Link to the opposite side of the earth. Do you understand? Natasha nodded. That's right. She shook her head jokingly. If you can make me and Link an enemy, I will surrender to the enemy at the first opportunity. Rogers ignored Natasha's tasteless jokes and continued. The Global Defense Coordination Committee, represented by Joseph, ignored us Avengers and attacked Nialang without authorization. What do you think of this matter? Natasha said. Ganon's will is bewitching. Rogers said. Why didn't Ganon's will bewitching us? Natasha was speechless. Rogers' expression became more serious, even if it was bewitched by Ganon. But it was the Earthlings themselves who hurt Nialang. Do you know what news I just got from Roddy? Natasha shook her head. Rogers' eyes were deep. Joseph has already targeted Link and ordered the arrest of Link and Zelda. The specific details are, if you dare to resist, strong measures including thermal weapons attacks can be taken. Natasha was shocked. This kind of order. Rogers continued to move forward. That's right. They are forcing Link to stand on the opposite side of the earth. If Link conflicts with the Global Defense Coordination Committee, guess what will happen to public opinion? Natasha seemed to understand what Rogers meant. Because of Link's identity as an alien, he will be widely discredited. Link will be distorted into an invader who is detrimental to the security of the Earth. Rogers nodded. That's right. We can't wait for Link to take action. Once Link takes action and causes casualties, his situation on Earth will be precarious. After all, he is an alien. Maybe he will be forced to move to Asgard because of this. And I plan to contact the decision makers of the Global Defense Coordination Committee before this order is completely delegated. As you said, we are friends with Link and we can't watch him get hurt. We must not allow Link to have conflicts with the Earth. We need to resolve this matter internally. Rogers' eyes were firm. If we have to, we should consider clearing the door. This sentence was very serious, and Natasha was shocked. Rogers got on the plane and flew to the United States in a hurry. Natasha watched Rogers leave. She hurriedly called Tony, because Rogers' attitude was indeed a little dangerous. After hearing the news, Tony opened his mouth wide. My god. He thinks that his broken mouth can talk about anything. Don't let your imagination run wild, okay? Natasha continued. You have to understand that the captain once died for the Earth, and since the ice thawed, he has always had psychological problems. He might. As Tony listened, his expression became strange. Then he said to Vision, let's go back to the United States quickly. Damn it. It's a wasted trip. Rogers wants to make a big news. Vision looked at the big dragon on his head and wondered, what should we do with this dragon? Nialang looked like he was dead and motionless, but Vision could feel Nialang's strong heartbeat. She guessed that Nialang just fainted. At this time, Nialang's round eyes suddenly opened and looked around thiefly. Seeing that the enemies around him disappeared, he suddenly flew into the air. Tony and Vision, who were worrying about how to place him, were shocked. He woke up. Why does he look so lively? Although Nialang's body was in a terrible state, his expression seemed to be fine. He shouted at Tony and Vision, who were in a daze twice, and suddenly flew into the sky. Tony asked Vision, what did he say? Vision looked strange. He said he was fine. He was just pretending to be dead. He left. Tony, pretending to be dead. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support this work. Please support genuine reading. Thanks to Lily Aquarius for 500 starting coins. Thanks to HC for 100 book coins. Chapter 367. Guardian Spirit Nori. Link didn't know that the storm had not dissipated, but had intensified. He immersed himself in his own spiritual world, opening the warm ball of light in his heart. He seemed to be able to feel that this ball of light could explain why his body had become smaller. He was helpless about the abnormality of his body. First, the energy attribute of his whole body was transformed into darkness. Then he turned into a shadow wolf, and now, he turned into a child. Maybe after a few more days, he would become a giant hundreds of feet tall and fight 1v1 with the alien monster that attacked the Earth. This new ball of light was slowly moving, as if there was a hot heart hidden inside, bursting with its own vitality. Vitality. Link's spirit dived into it, and suddenly it was as if he was in a soft ocean, and his whole body and mind lost weight. Link was shocked. What kind of powerful power was this? It actually made him feel as if he was standing on the clouds. He hurriedly dived into his spirit and began to integrate his will into it and began to take this power as his own. Bang! Link's mind was shocked. He felt the resistance from inside the light ball, and for a moment, even his soul was trembling. Link immediately understood that this ball of light was actually a self-aware being. This made him a little uncomfortable. He was about to withdraw the will that had penetrated into his mind and go to Goddess Hylia to solve his doubts. He saw that the ball of light suddenly trembled, and a small sound similar to a little girl's murmur came out from it. When Link was surprised, he saw that the ball of white light rushed towards his will. Woo wow. Link opened his eyes in fear and screamed. The princesses who were guarding him asked one after another, "Are you okay? Did you have a nightmare? Come let me hug you." The last one was asked by the Sky Princess. Link shook his head and rubbed his temple. He was frightened by the self-active energy. He had been attacked by Ganon's soul before, so he was very wary of this kind of impact from the soul level. Scared me to death. The princesses were stunned, and they heard such a voice coming from Link's body. Now Link has become smaller, and his voice is much softer, but no matter how soft it is still a very natural male voice. But the voice Link made just now was obviously a girl's voice. Zelda covered her mouth. "Link, you are not only smaller, but also your gender has changed, right?" Link was also frightened by Zelda at first, but then shook his head violently. He touched his throat. The words just now were not spoken by him, but came from his body. "This," Midona said seriously, "this is not necessarily true. Link can even transform into a little wolf, and it is also very likely that he can become a girl. Come, let me check it." As she said that, she rushed over. As a result, she saw Link raise his head and his eyes turned pure white. He stood still all of a sudden. The Washan princess immediately mobilized energy in her body, and she instinctively felt the emergence of a new and strange energy. In the surprised eyes of everyone, Link's facial features, eyes, mouth, ears, etc., were like a flashlight placed inside, releasing this white light outward. Link's toes also gently left the ground and floated slightly. Puff! The light suddenly exploded. Midona was already facing a great enemy. She was very worried. Link might have had some unknown abnormality in his body due to the battle with Ganon. Well, it finally came out. "Hello everyone. Midona bit her hands and screamed. The princesses also screamed. Suddenly, a ball of light with two small transparent wings appeared in Link's head, flying around like a small butterfly. Yair's eyes widened, with a look of "what the hell did I see?" Link regained his vision, and saw the small ball of light flying in front of him, a pixie. Pixies are a magical creature on the Hyrule continent. They like to live in the spiritual wild. They can be captured, and have special magical effects. When Link is dying, the pixie will release its vitality to help Link resist a fatal injury and restore the health of the four songs, and then fly away. One of Link's pleasures in wandering around Hyrule is to catch elves everywhere. Relying on these tiny and magical creatures, he has avoided many fatal attacks. I heard that elves can be eaten, and they taste extremely delicious. Of course Link can't bear to eat them. No, the elves in Hyrule can't speak. This shows that the light ball in front of him is actually another creature, the light ball with small wings turned around. It is said to be turned around, but the light ball has no facial features, just the direction of the wings is facing away from Link. Through the floating light, radiated from the outside, you can feel the strange emotional reaction of this little life. The little light ball asked, "Link, don't you recognize me? I'm Navi. We have experienced an adventure together." Link was stunned. Navi, the guardian elf of the world of Ocarina of Time. This elf once accompanied Link on adventures and experienced an unforgettable time together. It also helped Link a lot in various battles. Like Midona, it is also Link's very close partner. It seems you have forgotten me. Noi's light dimmed a little, and she looked a little depressed. Link hurriedly shook his head, indicating that he still remembered her. Noi's light immediately shone. "Really? You didn't forget me, that's great." But Yair was a little afraid, and pretended to bite it. This ball of light obviously had high purity energy. It must be delicious. Link hurriedly said, "Navi can't be eaten." But it was Noi who spoke. The little light ball quickly flashed its wings, to avoid Yair's dragon attack. Peepapa also followed Yair to chase Nori and play. Princess Washang smiled gently. It seems that you have one more pendant on your body. Princess Sky also looked at the guardian elf Nori, who was flying everywhere and shouting curiously. Then she remembered the big bird that had always been with her, and she couldn't help but feel a little gloomy. Link stopped Yair and Peepapa's antics and asked Nori how she could become his new force. Navi herself was also confused. I don't know. I fell asleep suddenly and woke up suddenly. But I know one thing, that is, I appeared to help you. I'm also your partner. I have many powerful skills now. Do you want to know? Who are these people? I have never seen them. Midona introduced them one by one. This is Zelda. This is also Zelda. And this is still Zelda. Navi. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support this book. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 368, Hidden. Assassination Skills. Link is now full of accessories. The souls of the 4 heroes hide in his body and sleep all day long. Or they suddenly appear and scare everyone. Yahaha, Peepapa. Chloro, the little life that likes to follow Link everywhere, is very powerful because of Tony's love, and his firepower is enough to beat 10 Hawkies. Hawkie, hey. Midona, the princess of the Kingdom of Shadows, the current owner of the reality gem. She also has very powerful power, but it is more non-combat. Fangaya, the reincarnation of Oolong, is a little dragon with a weird personality. She always likes to pester Link and act like a spoiled child, with a thorough little girl's personality. Now, there is another Navi. Navi is flying around lively, showing off to Link. Link. I'm very powerful now. I have strong abilities. Navi suddenly pounced on Link, and when she hit Link's face, Navi suddenly disappeared and merged into his body. Zelda was stunned. Where is she? Link suddenly disappeared when Navi merged into his body. Link raised his hand curiously and looked at his palm, which was completely transparent. The Sky Princess blinked. No, it's still there. Link has become transparent, but there is still a faint outline. Invisibility? Link was shocked. It is indeed a very powerful ability. Combined with Link's sneak attack with 8 times critical strike, it will be a terrible result. Navi's spirited voice came from his body. Awesome. I named this skill Navi Sneak. Very strange naming method. It is comparable to Zelda's original Starry Sky naming method. Navi suddenly flew out and said with some regret, it's a pity that it can't last long. It's still easy to be discovered by the enemy. But, I have other powerful skills. Midona asked curiously, what else? Tell us. And there are more. Navi's voice became smaller and smaller, and the white light emitted was also reduced. I forgot. Everyone. Just as Link was happy about his new partner and new reinforcement, the army of the Global Defense Coordination Committee had surrounded the Avengers base. The researchers and maintenance personnel inside were isolated. The Avengers transformed by Loki were monitored in the training room by military personnel. Tony, transformed by Loki, still looked stupid and shouted some inexplicable words everywhere. The real Loki had already walked out and sat on the roof of the Avengers base, enjoying the breeze and drinking red wine. Looking at the military under martial law around the base, a trace of sarcasm appeared at the corner of his mouth. Earthlings have this kind of broken problem, thinking that power can override strength. Just because the negotiations broke down, they directly blocked people at their doorsteps. It's really ignorant of life and death. Who is it? There was a warning sound, followed by the urgent sound of the army moving. From the sky, a yellow and red armor rushed down and slammed heavily on the ground. Tony coolly posed a falling pose, then untied his mask, revealing his somewhat unhappy face. Haha. As expected of the predecessor of the World Security Committee, it is even better than the original, and even more stupid than the original. Tony ignored the large number of armed soldiers in front of him, and walked straight into the base. Stop. Tony Stark. The one who has been controlled in the bases. Tony curled his lips. Oh, that's my half-brother, named Toji Dusko. Tell me, Who allowed you to break into my territory? We have the right to search and deal with any suspicious organization that will endanger the world. Stop, or I will shoot. Tony raised his arms with a mocking look on his face, but still walked forward step by step. What are you waiting for? The premise of my retirement is that someone can take over the task of fighting for me. Newcomers, it's time to show off. Tony shouted. The soldier was still wondering when he suddenly saw a young man with silver hair and glasses appear in front of him. He made a face and then punched him. He immediately fell to the ground with a nosebleed. At the moment he was hit, the silver-haired young man in front of him turned into a shadow, and the vigilant soldiers around him fell to the ground, covering their noses. Tony looked at the weird scene. He was very satisfied with the feeling of being the boss of the Avengers. He felt like a cool gang leader in the movie. He didn't do anything himself, but his men rushed to the front for him. A figure rushed over and stopped. Quicksilver shook his body and took off the bloody gloves in his hands. He took out a deformed candy bar from his trouser pocket and ate it, saying vaguely, "We didn't know that the plane could fly automatically at that time, and we were scared to death." I still held Sam and told him not to escape alone. Tony continued to walk forward slowly. You should learn from Captain America, who dares to jump down with a shield. Quicksilver laughed dryly. I can't learn it. I'm a land creature through and through. This area was cleared quickly, and on the other two sides, Vision and Scarlet Witch were responsible for clearing the enemies. The sound of fighting could be heard, and then the breathless voice of Scarlet Witch came from the headset. The enemies have been subdued, no casualties. Quicksilver said hurriedly. I was 5 seconds faster than her. Scarlet Witch's somewhat angry voice came. I heard your voice. There are 20 more enemies here than there. Quicksilver was not to be outdone. Each of my enemies here is 5 times stronger than your enemies over there. Scarlet Witch was not to be outdone. Each of my enemies here can beat 5 of my brothers. Quicksilver. Tony's body left the armor, revealing a casual outfit. Jarvis controlled the empty shell of Iron Man and followed Tony like a bodyguard. Tony looked at the top of the base, where Loki was leisurely holding a glass of wine and greeting him. He said loudly, I always feel that you are gloating over the internal strife of the Earthlings. Loki shrugged. You think too much. I'm just thinking, why do these troops dare to challenge the famous Iron Man with ordinary weapons? Who gives them the courage? Tony said, I want to know too. So after rescuing people and driving away those who invaded our territory, we'd better ask them in person. Loki jumped down and said gracefully, do you need my help? Tony's expression was a little gloomy. No, Rogers is right. Instead of waiting for the conflict to continue to brew and burn innocent outsiders, it is better for the Earthlings to solve it internally. Welcome to subscribe and vote to support genuine works. Chapter 369. The Avengers are unhappy. The soldiers in the Avengers base heard strange noises outside and immediately pointed their guns at the door. The people in the monitoring group shouted, control the Avengers here. If they show any abnormal behavior, kill them immediately. Yes. At this moment, the Avengers, led by Tony transformed by Loki, knelt on the ground obediently, holding their heads with their hands, like pregnant quails. Seeing the famous Avengers being easily subdued in their hands, everyone felt a strange pleasure. A soldier pointed a gun at the head of the fake Vision. This fake Vision had red skin and was trembling. The soldier kicked the fake Vision's shoulder hard and knocked him over. He shouted, ugly ghost, be honest. Are you kicking me? An inappropriate female voice came from the base, angrily saying, are you kicking me? The weapons in the hands of the soldiers pointed at the door. A beautiful woman with blue hair and a golden gem on her head opened the door and walked in. But the way she came in was different, so the soldiers of the Global Defense Coordination Committee were suddenly on high alert. Because this woman flew in. Fire. The head of the monitoring team roared. Immediately, the well-trained and indifferent soldiers released sparks from the muzzles of their guns, and bullets spewed at Vision. Vision walked forward calmly, and saw that the bullets shot at her body, but it was like a light hit like raindrops, and it didn't even break Vision's clothes. Dada. The shrunken bullets fell to the ground, and Vision was unharmed. The deadly weapons in their hands failed instantly, which made the soldiers' momentum drop sharply, and they all took 2 steps back. Due to the bad relationship between the Avengers and the Global Defense Coordination Committee, Natasha deliberately concealed the information. Therefore, the monitoring team and soldiers present only knew that Vision was an artificial intelligence life form created by Tony, with a metallic active skin, and liked to wear a cloak. As for the fact that Vision could become a normal human, they knew nothing. So the first reaction of the monitoring team was, the Avengers have bought a new monster again. He shouted angrily, who are you? If you don't want Stark to die, don't take another step forward. He hurriedly took out a pistol and pointed it at Tony's head. Tony, due to Loki's evil taste, although he looked like Tony, his personality was like a big fool. He shouted in panic, gun? I'm a millionaire. I'm the most evil arms dealer in the world. You can't kill me. Vision continued to float forward indifferently. The supervisory group was angered by her arrogance, and immediately his face twitched, his eyes red, and he gritted his teeth and said, do you think I dare not? Bang. Tony's head was shot through. The monitoring team roared fiercely, I repeat. If you don't want all your companions to die, you'd better stop right there. He was interrupted by Vision, who said impatiently, look at the hostages you have held. Tony is such a fierce man. If you dare to do this to him, he will beat you up. The monitoring team lowered their heads in astonishment, only to see that the Tony who was shot in the head was gone, replaced by a rag doll in the shape of Iron Man, which was Pepper's toy, and was secretly used by Loki as a stand-in prop. The soldiers were in chaos, and saw that the so-called Avengers they had held hostage all turned into rag dolls in a blink of an eye. And Vision also turned into his original red skin. I'm the real Vision. The soldier who kicked the fake Vision looked at the rag doll with footprints under his feet in astonishment. He started shooting at Vision in horror. But as soon as he raised his arm, the laser on Vision's head shot everywhere. Almost in a second, all the people holding weapons had their weapons melted by her laser, and they covered their wrists and groaned. At this time, the real Tony's frivolous voice came, Vision, in your eyes, am I very fierce? The door full of bullet holes was opened, and Tony in plain clothes walked in, patted Vision on the shoulder, and then shouted angrily, kneel down and put your hands on your heads. Quick. The soldiers and the inspection team knelt down one after another. Although Tony was not wearing a mecha, the members of the Global Defense Coordination Committee were more afraid of Tony than of Vision. Tony proudly put his hands on his waist and raised his chin to Vision with a cute smile on his face. You are right, I'm indeed very fierce. Boss Stark, we rescued the people. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch came over with Eric, Hill and other members of the Avengers base. Tony nodded, okay. Then he walked to the inspection team with a cold look in his eyes and asked condescendingly, isn't your mission to follow me and investigate me? Why is it changed to imprisonment now? Tony picked up the rag doll with the head full of white stuffing on the ground with a cold look in his eyes. You even broke Pepper's doll, you bastard. Tony took the leg of the Iron Man doll and slapped the inspector's face. Then he handed the doll to Hill and whispered, do me a favor and fix this doll to its original shape. Hill smiled. Seeing that Tony didn't seem to mean to kill him, the supervisory group immediately became bolder and shouted, Stark. We are from the Global Defense Coordination Committee. You know the price of making things difficult for us. The Avengers had better think about yourselves, so as not to get into big trouble. Quicksilver came over, rubbing his fist and frowning. This kid is so arrogant, I want to slap him 3,000 times a second. Tony waved his hand. Wait until I finish asking, then it's up to you. He looked at the supervisory group coldly. I hope you will think about yourselves. However, you have already gotten yourself into big trouble. The supervisory group gritted their teeth and said, the Global Defense Coordination Committee will not let you go. Tony interrupted him. It's sus who won't let the Global Defense Coordination Committee go. I've seen many brutal governments, vulgar peace organizations, politicians full of stupidity and bad intentions, and careerists with perverted hearts. But they can communicate with others, but you can't. I'm not surprised that Joseph gave the order to attack our Avengers, because there is a parasite in his brain. But the Global Defense Coordination Committee, this stupid multinational joint organization with a long name, is not an organization of Joseph alone. But I didn't expect that other senior executives would actually indulge Joseph. What? Want to see the destructive power of the Avengers? Tony's attitude towards the Global Defense Coordination Committee has always been based on compromise and hard communication. He even considered accepting part of the agreement to restrict the freedom of the Avengers in exchange for the trust of various countries and people. For this, he has been under a lot of pressure from within the Avengers, especially the dissatisfaction of Rogers and Banner. But after a phone call with Rogers and a piece of information stolen from the Global Defense Coordination Committee's intelligence system, Tony completely changed his attitude. We just want to express an opinion now. The Avengers are unhappy. Thanks to Xianatang246 for supporting 100 starting coins. Chapter 370 Protecting our Link. Before coming here, Tony hurriedly had a call with Rogers. Rogers' meaning was very clear. He couldn't continue to tolerate it, otherwise it would be unfair to Link and others who had made the greatest contribution to the Earth. The Global Defense Coordination Committee was a derivative of the World Security Committee, which was directly under the Shield. It was an armed organization formed by many countries in the world to deal with increasingly serious conflicts caused by abnormal events, representing the will of many countries. It had the authority to search any private organization and also controlled armed forces such as nuclear weapons and global strike systems. Even though Tony hated this organization, he was still unwilling to break with them. This was the reason. The scope involved was too large and too wide, and it was easy to cause big problems. If there was a conflict with the World Defense Coordination Committee, the Avengers would be in a very serious situation. Tony had always advocated cooperation before, but now he didn't want to cooperate. He wanted to teach the Global Defense Coordination Committee a lesson. The reason was two things. Both were related to Link. Rogers said, if the Global Defense Coordination Committee attacked Zelda, who could stop Link's revenge and resentment? If we continue to compromise, they will be unscrupulous, and will definitely make such a terrible thing happen. Our compromise is to force Link to become an enemy from a hero. Tony was silent, and then asked Jarvis to quickly hack into the intelligence system of the Global Defense Coordination Committee. He found the records about Link. He saw some content, which completely changed Tony's opinion. He decided to take tough measures against the Global Defense Coordination Committee. In the intelligence about Link, in addition to the battle record and superpowers exposed to the public, there is also a note, Link's weakness, Zelda. This shows that the Global Defense Coordination Committee has indeed made a plan against Zelda. This information is more terrifying to Tony than Rogers playing heavy metal rock. He can even see this scene. Zelda is attacked, and the furious Link launches anti-nuclear bombs all over the world. The special effects of the picture exceed Tony's brain computing ability, causing him to crash for a short time. In the original Time and Space, the most hopeless thing in the plot is the hostility and arrogance of the Earth's interior towards the Avengers. This also led to the internal rift of the Avengers. The appearance of Link changed the Avengers' tolerance policy towards the Earth in the original Time and Space. In order to protect Link, and to protect the Earth from losing this important guardian, Rogers and Tony, the two giants with the most say in the Avengers, decided to unite and become idols. No, to take tougher measures against the Global Defense Coordination Committee. At this moment, Rogers has come to the headquarters of the Global Defense Coordination Committee in Washington. As a superhero that has been in the United States for 3 or 4 generations, Rogers has a very high reputation in all walks of life. Not only Coulson and the children, but also many high-ranking politicians are his super fans. A senior member of the Global Defense Coordination Committee met Rogers at a voluntary cocktail party long before the establishment of this organization. He is a simple and calm person, and is also a force that opposes forced intervention in the Avengers. Rogers decided to go to the door, to talk to the man, and investigate the internal situation. He disguised himself, took out a metal card that Tony had given him, and swiped the card to enter the headquarters. Tony proudly said that this metal card could allow Rogers to enter anywhere freely. As soon as he entered the door, he found that the interior of the Global Defense Coordination Committee was a bit deserted, and the defense organizations around it were not as dense as he had imagined. Rogers had even sneaked into the military base of the asterisk. In the Avengers, his stealth skills were among the top 3. The top 2 were Link, who had extraordinary skills, and Natasha, the Black Widow. Rogers avoided the camera and quietly slipped up the stairs. According to the memory in his mind, he had just passed the information to Tony and went to the office. But when he arrived at the planned floor, as soon as he entered, Rogers held his breath. He asked about the smell of blood, and it was very strong. Although the floor and the walls were spotlessly clean, they could even reflect Roger's figure. There was still a strong smell of detergent, but there was still a lot of blood that could not hide from Roger's nose, who had walked out of the war years. There were also traces of fighting on the wall. Entering the office of the senior executive, there was no one inside, and the desk was a bit messy. Walking forward, Roger still found something wrong. There was a half-broken blood email on the ground under the table. It was obvious that when the person was captured, he resisted strongly, so much so that his mail broke when he scratched the table. Rogers hurriedly said to Tony, "There seems to be a serious conflict within the Global Defense Coordination Committee. The senior executives on our side were kidnapped for no reason." Tony blew a whistle. He had just finished talking to Natasha and Banner. He ordered the two to hold Link back and not let Link return to the United States before the remaining Avengers had dealt with the internal conflict of the Earthlings. Natasha agreed and looked at Banner with some contradictions, and her smile was a little reluctant. Because of this incident, if it is not handled properly, the Avengers will become the global public enemy. By then, it will not be Link and Zelda who cannot gain a foothold on the Earth, but the entire Avengers Alliance will not be able to gain a foothold on the Earth. Banner changed his usual gentleness. "It should have been done earlier. I hate others treating me as a time bomb." Natasha looked at Banner's hurt face. As the emotional mediator second only to Link in the Avengers, she calmed Banner's overly intense emotions. Back to Tony. He heard the news about Rogers. Tony immediately said, "Maybe they were kidnapped by Joseph's men. No wonder this shabby organization has suddenly become so radical." It turns out that the good organs inside have been corroded and then filled with dirty venom. "Captain, don't move yet. Wait until a large number of us are gathered, and then we'll see how that useless cannon puppet Joseph wants to play." Bang! There was a sudden strong collision sound from Roger's channel, followed by Roger's muffled groan. Tony was startled. "Captain?" Rogers' voice came with some difficulty. "We are in trouble. Come here quickly. I'll start fighting first." Bang bang bang. Tony shouted, "Jarvis, speed up. Use up the fuel in the fighter plane within 30 seconds. Jarvis, "Okay, sir." "Falcon, the plane will disintegrate like this." "Of course I have wings. I'm not afraid." "What about these two children?" The two children, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, were a little scared. Although Scarlet Witch could also float in the air, she was just floating, and she was very unskilled. Vision smiled gently and said, "It's okay. I will pull you to a safe landing." Tony said solemnly, "I hope the captain won't be beaten to death before we get there." Falcon said silently, "Mr. Stark, you sound a bit like a curse." "Really?" Chapter 371, Useless Ninja and Useless Mage. Rogers was hit hard in the face, and he broke through the window and almost flew out. He didn't even have time to see the attacker's face clearly. When he fell out of the window, Rogers took off the round shield on his back and used it as an ice pick, smashing it hard. The vibranium round shield stabbed into the wall like a knife into the sand, deeply stopping the fall. Rogers took a deep breath and swung down, kicking the explosion-proof glass on the lower floor. He did a backflip and jumped into the lower floor more beautifully than a gymnast. As he rolled closer to the building, he saw three tall ninjas jumping in from the broken window. Oops! Rogers' heart sank. It was the ninjas of the Yage team. He knew the strength of this group of Yage team. At present, there were three of them. Rogers might be able to defeat them with his superb fighting skills, but these ninjas could call for more companions. Three ninjas jumped down and yawned. "What are you doing, invaders? Can't you invade another day? I'm very tired today." "Okay." Another person complained. "When are you not sleepy? Also, can you not come again in the future? It's so annoying. I don't want to move." The three ninjas seemed to have endured 3 days and nights and had no intention of fighting Rogers at all. They sat on the ground and rolled around like caterpillars. Rogers was stunned. "You don't plan to fight me?" The ninja said lazily. "I'm too lazy to deal with you, and don't even think about running away. Otherwise we will beat you." Ha. Rogers blinked. What about the almost foreseeable brutal battle? He didn't know the reason for the incident. The incident started when Link blew up the temporary base of the Yage team. The life force of ninjas is extremely strong. Even when Link blew up the underground cave, one ninja barely survived. So he used the splitting ability given by Ganon to copy a large number of them. Continue to work for Ganon. The boss, Lord Koge, was dead, and they turned to the new leader, Joseph, who was bewitched and infected by Ganon. Joseph used this group of powerful ninjas to directly control all the high-level members of the Global Defense Coordination Committee. But unfortunately, this group of ninjas were all split from a ninja who ate Tony's poisonous banana. Tony's carefully developed poisonous bananas did not poison even one ninja, but instead let them eat the most delicious bananas in the world. But after eating the best human delicacy in the world, the ninjas fell into a huge emptiness. The world can no longer find anything more delicious than the bananas developed by Tony. So the poor Yage team ninjas lost their passion for life. Just like the victims of taking strong drugs, they were lost all day long and walked like a waste. Rogers didn't understand the reason for this strange thing. He only knew that he seemed to have met 3 strange ninjas. Although they were powerful and had a powerful combat power to defeat 3 Hawkies. Hawkie, hey. But they had no desire to fight at all. Rogers rarely showed a sly smile on his face. I don't want to fight with you either. Let me go, okay? The ninja said lazily. No. The boss will be angry. Rogers shrugged. If you let me go, there will be other ninjas to deal with me anyway. No. Oh, right. The ninja raised his head slightly. Leave this troublesome thing to others. Okay, I won't stop you. Let other ninjas catch you. Don't bother us. So, Rogers smiled dryly and slipped away. Natasha and Banner returned to Link's ward again. But halfway, an alarm sounded in the corridor. Banner said, could it be that the Global Defense Coordination Committee attacked here? Natasha said in a deep voice, impossible. This branch is very secretive. They won't know. But this is even worse. We have encountered an unknown enemy. Go back to find Link quickly. He has become smaller now. I don't know if his ability has also weakened. They speeded up, but suddenly found that the space in front of them began to become disordered. 3 wizard-like men suddenly broke through the space and rushed out. Natasha is very good at dealing with crisis situations, and based on the information in her mind, she made some guesses. Staring at the 3 men with strange abilities, are you the subordinates of the woman called Ancient One? What? Link doesn't want to visit you, and this time you are going to force an invitation code? Ancient One? The man sneered. She actually came to see Link too? Humph, she let Link go so easily. As he said that, a strange power was brewing in his hand, and a purple light shot towards Banner. Be careful. Natasha acted very quickly pushed Banner away, and the 2 fell to the ground. Looking at the 3 hostile mages, they brewed an attack again. Banner grabbed Natasha and put her aside and smiled reluctantly. You should let him attack me. This will make me even more angry. The voice quickly became thicker and Banner quickly turned green. Hulk tore off his clothes and roared, swinging 2 fists to hit the Sanming mage. Ha! The leading mage winked. The 2 mages behind him immediately had sparks in their hands. They quickly extended 2 light rains, wrapped around Hulk's wrists, and pointed at the void. The light rains pulled Hulk, trying to tear him apart. Hulk made a painful sound. Natasha immediately took out her gun and fired 3 bullets. The mage in front drew a circle. The bullets rushed into the circle and then shot at Natasha from another space. Natasha lost consciousness, gritted her teeth, and quickly moved her body. Her current body reaction could not get rid of the bullets, so she could only let the bullets hit the body in a less fatal part within the range allowed by the reaction. Just when Natasha was about to be hit by her own bullets, time and space were broken. Little Link appeared, holding a dragon scale sword, and kept slashing. Obviously, this piece of time and space was forcibly chopped back to normal by him. The Sky Princess raised her arm slightly, and a black curtain flew out, quickly blocking in front of Natasha and taking the bullets in. The leading mage whispered, "You actually escaped?" Princess Washan carefully wiped the blood on the blade. "It's not escape, but walk out." The leading mage changed color. At this moment, Hulk roared angrily and broke the rains of light. He punched the 3 mages furiously. The leading mage changed color. He really underestimated the Avengers. He wanted to escape immediately. Humph. No wonder that woman Guyi didn't dare to touch you easily. Let's go. The leading mage drew a circle and prepared to step into it. Even if he couldn't beat them, the mage's face had to be saved. Say something harsh before running away, but because he wasted time talking, Link seized the opportunity. I'm coming. Nori flew over quickly and locked the three mages. Link's three ice arrows were directly thrown like darts. Welcome to subscribe and vote. Please support genuine reading. Thank you for the support of Lily Water Bottle 500 starting coins. Chapter 372, Traveling Through Space. Don't even think about running away. Link was a little angry. He was alone in the ward, watching Navi chattering with Zelda and the others. After a short sleep, the fatigue of the war came to his mind again. Even though he defeated Ganon, the shadow left by Ganon still existed. The three dragons had all been killed by Ganon, and the only lucky one was Nilang. This represented a grim fact. Even if Ganon had not yet awakened, it was unknown when he would accumulate his unfathomable dirty power. But his will was still increasingly disrupting the universe. Future enemies would also become stronger under Ganon's influence. What if Hela, Thanos, and Dormammu bewitched Ganon? Although Link grew rapidly, he was always in the shadow of Ganon. Ganon's will constantly created various incidents in an attempt to stifle Link's growth. But this also provided Link with an idea. Ganon regarded him as a thorn in his side and kept sending people to oppress him. Why not take the initiative to attack as much as possible and kill Ganon's plan in the cradle in advance? After Ganon succeeded in the last attack, Link also breathed a sigh of relief for the Sky Princess. This was his first move. When he was thinking about how to find Ganon's floor again, the ward exploded with a click. The wall disappeared in a second, and a strong wave rushed inward. If a cat or a puppy was placed inside, it would probably be exploded into meat paste. Nori immediately flew down from the air and landed on Link's head. The Washan princess swung a sword, and the sword light was like a ripple in the water, swinging to intercept the explosion wave. The Sky Princess also used her increasingly skilled power of the Starry Night to wield a star curtain. Zelda's increasingly smaller and stronger bird soared in the air and deformed, extending into a large metal film, and the violent explosion wave was quickly absorbed by it. With the efforts of the three princesses, the ward suddenly exploded, and the impact on the interior was just a slight ripple of the Washan princess's hair. Link didn't even need to take action. But this sudden movement ignited Link's suppressed emotions. He stood on the bed. His small and tender face was filled with gloomy anger, although the angry little Link was also cute. Midona narrowed her eyes and smirked. Who is here to trouble us again? Aren't you afraid of getting your head smashed by angering our little Link? Then she raised her nose and sniffed twice, saying, it feels similar to the breath of the Ancient One, but more paranoid and tyrannical. After the explosion, the walls and ceiling of the base disappeared, leaving three beds alone. A circle of indifferent men flew around. Wearing a crimson robe, he looked like a pious monk, but he didn't have the monk's calmness and detachment at all. A circle of sparklight light surrounded his hands. Where is Link? The leading wizard followed the instructions of the eldest brother Cassilis and looked for a boy with long golden hair and long ears, but he glanced at the faces of several beautiful and charming princesses and ignored the shrunken little Link. Link jumped off the bed angrily, and a red dragon-scaled sword suddenly came out of the weapon space. I'm Link, what can I do for you? Link spoke. Although he was not dumb, he spoke very rarely, either when it was necessary or when he was in a bad mood. Otherwise he would not speak easily. And this time, it was undoubtedly the latter. The wizard saw the cute child and a large and exaggerated weapon appeared in his hand. They immediately formed a circle and attacked inward, obviously not intending to talk to Link and the others, and wanted to capture them in one fell swoop. Link jumped high, and because his body became smaller, he showed a more abrupt sense of power than before. This time he neither used the power of the four heroes nor the sacred Triforce in his body. He just slashed cleanly with a direct spin. Boom boom boom. The sword light splashed, Link fell down, and was gently caught by Zelda. Link was very uncomfortable, and wanted to get out of Zelda's control. And around him, a circle of enemies fell to the ground one after another, without a breath. Because he didn't want to make things too bloody in front of the three princesses, Link made some adjustments in the sword energy he swung. It was closer to a strong airflow than a sharp edge. He killed all the enemies. This made the scene much more beautiful. Navi jumped on Link's head. Ha ha. So powerful. Midona felt the fluctuations in the distance and said hurriedly, it seems that Natasha and the others have also been attacked by the enemy. So Link and others rushed over quickly and saw the space-time fragment barrier in front of them. Link asked Midona to borrow some ether particles, and with the dragon scale sword, he suddenly chopped down, instantly breaking the space-time barrier and saving Natasha. Seeing that the enemy was about to run, and he ran, after saying something fierce. Link was in a bad mood now, so he naturally wouldn't tolerate such a thing. The three mages escaped through the space-time gate, but Navi, in addition to invisibility, another skill came into effect. Lock. The three mages were locked by Navi's brilliance, and a triangular light appeared on their bodies. They escaped through the sparking time and space gate. Link shot out 3 ice arrows and disappeared. Midona frowned and said TSK. They escaped. Nori jumped in the air and shouted happily, I'm here. They can't escape Link's attack. The three mages immediately traveled from the African Shield branch to London. The three of them were all sweating. Oh my god, it's a good thing we escaped quickly, otherwise we would have been beaten. That kid is Link. Why does he look younger than the intelligence? Who cares? It's a pity that so many of our companions have met with misfortune. We must avenge them. Yes, revenge. The three mages with simple shapes encouraged each other on the cold streets of New York, attracting the indifferent British people around them to look at them sideways. They didn't notice that the space behind them had not yet completely closed. 3 ice arrows pierced out from the void with a swoosh. Swish. The three mages were stunned. My back seems to be wet. After saying such a stupid thing, the three wizards fell on the streets of New York, as if they were possessed. At this time, a beautiful British doctor passed by and hurried over to check out her professional ethics. Because the speed of the ice arrow was too fast, after the power burst out, it could not be maintained and quickly turned into water. So turning over, the beautiful British doctor made a strange discovery. A wound appeared on the backs of the three wizards, bleeding right in the heart. However, there was no murder weapon. Did I encounter a supernatural case? My god. Ever since Slanchi treated Stark, strange things have always happened. The beautiful doctor looked around nervously in the street in a daze. Welcome to Vote and Subscribe. Please support genuine reading. Chapter 373 Dormammu's Peeping. Hulk was furious. Seeing that the enemy had disappeared, he clenched his fists and waved them in the air twice. He found Link, who had shrunk, and immediately laughed muffledly, like a mentally retarded child, rumbling, Link. Shorty. Link was even more unhappy. He roared, but because he was a child, the roar sounded tender. It even sounded a bit like Pepper. He exerted force with his legs and jumped up. He held the dragon scale sword flat and hit it like a fly swatter. Dang. Hulk's head was unusual, and it made the dragon scale sword sway. But Link's heavy blow, even if he didn't really hit him, was not something that ordinary people could withstand. Before Hulk could react, Link slapped him to the ground, and he sat down. A cute face. Seeing Link with a gloomy face, Hulk had learned his lesson and shouted, Link is unhappy. Hulk is unhappy too. Then his body twisted, green seeped deep into his body, and the Haggard banner returned. Natasha muttered in her heart, it makes sense for Tony and the captain to do this. If one day Link is forced to leave, who will comfort or suppress Hulk? Banner rubbed his head. I felt something hit my head hard. Link quickly put away the dragon scale sword, looking very well behaved. Banner looked at Link's messy golden hair, and his eyes were as smart and cute as a cat. He thought to himself, if Betty and I hadn't done this, I'm afraid the child would be the same age as Link now. He couldn't help rubbing Link's little head. After the battle, Zelda frowned and said, who could this group of people be? Natasha analyzed based on her superior judgment. I just tried to get some information. They are hostile to the wizard called Ancient One. They want to capture Link. Navi flew around. Wow. This place is really destroyed. After watching Link finish the fight, Yair also recovered some energy and ran to chase Navi. Midona said, since they are hostile to Ancient One, let's go find the bald sister. Kamataj. Is this the place? Link frowned deeply. Ancient One's enemy. Caecilius? No. If it is against Link, it must be the transcendent existence behind Caecilius. Dormammu. Dormammu is the future enemy of Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange at this time. Since it does not belong to the real space, it is impossible to judge how strong Dormammu's power is. But among the villains that have appeared in Marvel so far, Dormammu is also the transcendental one. Thanos, Hela, and Dormammu are the three most powerful enemies faced by the Avengers in the later period. Needless to say, Thanos is one of the strongest beings in the world. He challenged the existence of the entire Avengers by himself. He destroyed half of the creatures in the world. Hela, the sister of Thor, the god of thunder, and the daughter of Odin, the goddess of death, whose power and ambition are so strong that even Odin is afraid of them and has to seal them up. These two strong men have one thing in common. That is, no one has ever defeated them at present in the plot known to Link. When Thanos fought against the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers, he always maintained a nonchalant attitude. Even so, except for the peak Thor after the outbreak, no one could stop Thanos. Although in the Titan War, Tony and others plotted and almost took off Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. But Thanos does not just rely on the Infinity Gauntlet, he also has extremely powerful strength. Even without the Infinity Gauntlet, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Star-Lord who have no supplies can resist it. The same is true for Hela, who withstood Thor's strongest lightning strike and was almost unscathed. Thor had no choice but to let Ragnarok bury Asgard and Hela. Of these two villains, at least there is Thor among the Avengers who can fight them. At least they are real life. Dormammu is different. He has never failed from beginning to end. He was just annoyed by Doctor Strange and didn't want to invade the real world anymore. Apart from this, there is no other suitable way. This kind of victory looks ridiculous. But Link himself is in this world, so he naturally feels depressed by this gap in power. It's just like a weak creature that can't compete with a savage predator and can only make its meat unpalatable and barely survive. What's the difference? Why would such a terrifying transcendent existence target Link? Link thought about it for a while and suddenly felt cold all over. Goddess Hylia. It's like it's not Caecilius who is targeting Link, but Dormammu behind Caecilius. Dormammu is not really targeting Link, but the goddess Hylia behind Link. The goddess Hylia can barely survive in the Marvel universe now. It is like reducing a person to a string of code. It is better to let his shadow continue to exist in the world instead of himself. Does Dormammu covet such a goddess Hylia? Link immediately asked Midona to say, let's go back to New York quickly. We need to see the goddess. Go back to New York. Banner and Natasha were shocked. Banner laughed dryly and said, why don't you rest here for a while? What New York? Link looked around, and it was in tatters. Can we continue to rest in such a broken place? Natasha also coughed. Why don't we go to Nepal to find the Ancient One? Otherwise, we don't even know the enemy's purpose, and it will be difficult for us to deal with it. Link didn't know that Tony and Rogers were doing a big thing. Natasha's reason was impeccable. The goddess can still be contacted through inner prayer. Link must also communicate with the Ancient One as soon as possible. After all, the Ancient One is the real guardian of the Earth who resists the invasion of the multidimensional world. Natasha and Banner breathed a sigh of relief. They didn't know what serious interests were involved behind this group of wizards. With layers of doubts, Link went to Kamatage with Banner and others. At this moment, Rogers has encountered Joseph in the empty corridor. Joseph came over tremblingly, his eyes trembling nervously, and looked at Rogers with a strange smile. Rogers stared at Joseph's feet. Every time he took a step forward, a pool of blood would seep out of his feet, and it was expanding, like a chemical reaction, and cannon pollution like roots emerged on the ground. Joseph's face was pale, and he said in a bitter voice, Steve Rogers, a hero of World War II, a resurrected super soldier. What are you doing here? Joseph twisted his neck and made a tooth-grinding creaking sound, as if his body had been calcified in all directions. Welcome to subscribe and vote for support. Thank you for reading the genuine version. Chapter 374 Captain America's Tragic Experience. Joseph said in a hoarse voice, I really don't want to see you like this, but it doesn't matter. Rogers, all the Avengers, including you, will be swallowed by the shadow of Lord Ganon. He stretched out his arms tremblingly and saw that his hands were already festering beyond recognition, and the Ganon pollution derived and gathered into filthy branches similar to tree branches. Joseph's body spasmed violently, as if his body was injected with an overdose of stimulants, and he had a serious rejection reaction. Seeing this, Rogers felt sick and said, "Why did you become like this after joining Ganon?" Then he rushed over. I saw that the Ganon pollution gathered into a big fist and smashed towards Rogers like a millstone. Rogers flashed past lightly and swung a fist hard, hitting Joseph's face. At the same time, he smelled a foul smell in his nose. Joseph's body seemed to be severely corroded by the Ganon pollution. After a punch, Joseph staggered. Rogers swept him down with a sweeping kick. When he was about to take further action, he saw a scream suddenly coming from behind Joseph, which was extremely piercing. 8 spider legs stretched out from behind Joseph, and the legs were all sharp and bloody. There were red lines on them. Amid the stench from Joseph's body, a strange and strong fragrance wafted from the spider legs. Rogers, who was used to asterisk experiments, naturally knew that this inexplicable spider leg was poisonous. He quickly put up his shield and blocked it. Dang dang dang. The vibranium shield absorbed a lot of impact force, but still pushed Rogers back 10 meters. There was a strange puffing sound from Joseph's body, as if some part was desperately releasing venom. Rogers was puzzled. What happened to Joseph's body after so long? What did Ganon do to him? At this time, Joseph's body spasms had reached the extreme, and his face was blue and purple, revealing indifference and madness. Next, something happened that made Rogers feel terrified. Swish. Not only the spider legs, but also the Ganon pollution quickly condensed from behind Joseph, forming a big spider that has been covering Joseph's back. The spider's head is composed of Ganon pollution and some broken bone fragments, which is extremely ferocious. Every detail of the spider's mouth is clearly visible. It is enough to make any mammal produce an ancient fear of insects. The spider's head drooped fiercely, and the long mouth wrapped around Joseph's head, and the sharp teeth pierced into it, spitting blood. He seemed to be wearing a helmet. Spider? Spider? Rogers' eyes twitched. He didn't expect that there was a big spider parasitizing Joseph's body. Captain America has the courage to sacrifice his life for the Earth. But it is still difficult for him to deal with such an ugly and hideous giant insect. Rogers is different from Link. He is a bare-handed person. It is so uncomfortable to hit the head of this big spider with a fist. Before, the Ganon spider was attached to Joseph, but now it is more like Joseph is attached to the abdomen of the Ganon spider. The Ganon spider rushed towards Rogers quickly, its 8 legs waving up and down like wings. It stabbed Rogers fiercely. Rogers jumped up 3 meters with one somersault, broke the ceiling with one fist, and hung on it. The Ganon spider rushed over, and he saw all the details of the Ganon spider's back. The Ganon spider's huge tail was a hideous human face pattern. It was like the human-faced spider that often appeared in legendary novels. But the human face Rogers encountered was obviously not a coincidence of biological self-evolution. Because that hideous human face pattern looked like Joseph's face screaming there. Rogers shouted at the micro communicator, "Tony, how long will it take you to get here? I need a long-range weapon here." "Captain, I'm sorry. Boss Stark is not here. Falcon and I are rescuing the employees of the Global Defense Coordination Committee who were captured by Joseph." It's disgusting. Quicksilver received the information. At this moment, he and Falcon found the captured employees, based on the living body positioning device invented by Stark. At this moment, they were locked in a secret room, surrounded by layers of blood-red dirt. Falcon was shooting with his weapon from a distance, pecking at these annoying things bit by bit. And these poor employees, because of the pollution of Ganon, were already dying, and they were mumbling all kinds of nonsense nervously, as if they had seen something they shouldn't have seen. Although Quicksilver was talking to Rogers leisurely, his feet were not idle. A large number of ninjas sighed and rushed over to make trouble for him and Falcon. Falcon was trying to find a way to save people, so the task of restraining the enemy was given to Quicksilver. Quicksilver was fast, and ninjas could teleport. So he and this group of elusive ninjas chased each other. What made Quicksilver sad was that these ninjas seemed different from those he knew. No matter how Quicksilver greeted them, the ninjas ignored him. Rogers' heavy breathing came from the receiver. "Where is Tony?" Quicksilver slapped the ninja casually. It was exciting to run away after hitting him. Then he said to Rogers, "Boss Stark seems to have found something and ran away. Currently, only Vision, Falcon and my sister are here. Vision and my sister are coming to you to reinforce." Rogers breathed a sigh of relief when he heard that someone was coming to reinforce. He jumped down and rolled to the side, threw the round shield hard, and hit the face of Ganon Spider hard. He was under great pressure to fight with such a monster. Rogers was not a coward. He was willing to protect the pulled grenade with his body for his teammates. But just like the bravest people, they may not be willing to swim in a pool full of worms and echinoderms. Rogers didn't want to have physical contact with such a disgusting monster. Scarlet Witch and Vision just come over. Both girls have long-range attacks. After internal testing, both girls have extremely terrifying potential, and they can even stand shoulder to shoulder with Thor and Hulk in the future. Rogers and Tony also have high hopes for them. At this moment, Scarlet Witch, who was hugged by Vision, flew over through the wall. Rogers was overjoyed, pointing at the Ganon Spider that pounced on him and shouted, "Hurry up and attack him with light." Then Rogers' face froze, and Scarlet Witch and Vision were stunned when they saw the Ganon Spider, trembling with fear and not daring to go up. Girls, their disgust and fear of insects are 100 times greater than Rogers. Their hesitation caused Rogers, who was overjoyed, to be pounced on by the Ganon Spider and pressed to the ground. Damn it. The Ganon Spider and the rotten Joseph pressed Rogers, and Rogers' face turned green. He didn't want to touch this disgusting thing, but he ended up having such a close contact. Looking at the sharp spider teeth slashing at him, stabbing at him, Rogers was so disgusted that he became angry. He roared, "Stay away." He punched the Ganon Spider's eyes. It was disgusting. The joints of his hand were full of pus. Rogers roared, "Get out of here." He raised his legs and kicked the Ganon Spider away. Welcome to Vote and Subscribe to Support. Thank you Lost Cube for your support of 2000 starting coins. Chapter 375 Collapse. Captain America has always been the most underestimated person among the Avengers. But those who anger him know how powerful he is. Rogers panted and knelt on the ground. His body was covered with dirty mucus, which was a great blow to him. I really don't want to fight with such a dirty, disgusting and smelly creature. He kept dodging the attack of the Ganon Spider, but he was still covered with stinky. Rogers stood up. The two girls also hurried over like ghosts and asked timidly, "Captain, are you okay?" Vision was about to shoot the Ganon Spider with the light of the Mind Stone, but Rogers shook his head and ran over first, raised his fist, and hit the Ganon Spider, which had just stood up, to the ground again with a fierce punch. Cracks appeared on the floor under his feet. The Ganon Spider screamed, and its poisonous spider legs quickly deflected like a machine, accurately stabbing Rogers' head. Vision shouted, "Captain, be careful." Rogers looked at the attacking spider legs coldly and dodged them gently with a swing of his body. Then he took the vibranium round shield and chopped it out like a big knife. With a hiss, he cut off the two spider legs, and dirty pus came out and sprayed on Rogers. The pus contained a lot of Ganon pollution and curse power. If ordinary people touch it, it will cause skin burns and abnormal consciousness. But these can't hurt Rogers. He has a strong ability to reject toxins. With the shield in his hand, he used the vibranium round shield as a knife and stepped on the head of the Ganon Spider. Rogers cut off the spider legs in a few seconds. Rogers forcibly suppressed the struggling Ganon Spider and said angrily with a dirty body, "Joseph, how long are you going to resist?" Vision whispered to Scarlet Witch, "I admire the captain a little bit now. He dares to fight such a disgusting bug. If it were me, I wouldn't dare." "Me too." Rogers heard the whispers of the two girls helplessly, and he had a headache. He would rather not have this kind of admiration. At this time, Vision suddenly shouted, "Captain, be careful." Rogers felt a gust of wind coming, and saw that the place where the Ganon Spider's legs were broken quickly gushed out dirty Ganon pollution, forming spider legs again and stabbing Rogers. Seeing that Rogers was about to be stabbed by 8 spider legs, the two girls who had failed before also reacted quickly. Vision's mind gem laser shot fiercely, and Scarlet Witch pushed with both hands. Half of the spider legs that attacked Rogers were broken by the power of the new lights. The other half was accurately shot off by Vision's laser. Rogers quickly moved away. I saw that the Ganon Spider regenerated 8 spider legs again. Vision and Scarlet Witch felt uncomfortable. "Hate. A spider that can regenerate." Scarlet Witch exerted force from a distance and said "Ha." Softly, the Scarlet power lifted the Ganon Spider, revealing Joseph in the abdomen. Joseph's stiff face twitched slightly, and a hoarse voice came out of his throat. I will not die. I will be loyal to Lord Ganon to the earth. My god. Scarlet Witch lowered her head and suddenly spread her hands apart. The scarlet power tore Ganon's body and tore it apart. Although the body had been torn apart by the Scarlet Witch, the broken body was still repaired into its original appearance by a powerful force. The 8 spider legs and the disgusting mouthparts on the head were shaking. Ganon's spider was controlled by the Scarlet Witch and suspended in the air. The Scarlet Witch said with a bit of difficulty, "It's so strange. I can suppress him, but I can't destroy him, and the power of Ganon's curse in his body is still getting stronger." Vision immediately closed his eyes and felt the soul world of this hideous creature. He opened his eyes and said, "Joseph's belief in Ganon is so firm that it is almost unshakable. No one else can destroy it, except Link or Zelda." Rogers put his hands on his waist and exuded a foul smell. The two girls quietly moved away a little, but Rogers still easily noticed it. He said with depression, "It seems that destroying Ganon seems to be Link's privilege only?" Vision nodded. "Yes, Link has a trait. Only those who have this trait can become a hero. Of course, there are other ways." She searched the contents of her database. At this time, the sound of airflow from the thrusters was heard. Iron Man recklessly broke through a wall and walked out leisurely. Tony opened his visor and said calmly, "Captain, you are an adult after all. You can't blow up the bathroom like you did when you were a child. Why did you make it so dirty?" Rogers turned his head and asked, "Do you have any way to deal with this big spider? He can always regenerate." Tony looked at the Ganon spider that was fixed in the air by the Scarlet Witch and whispered, "Joseph, you seem to have been hollowed out by Ganon. My Jarvis can't detect any life skills in your body. Are you dead? But even if you are dead, Ganon can still keep your mind alive. So you can hear what I say, right?" Joseph roared, the world will fall into darkness." Tony shook his head with some compassion. "Really? This is the supreme ideal of the big villain. But although you are in a high position and powerful, you are not a very ambitious man, just a man who loves his daughter. I have seen your daughter. You seem to be praying for Ganon's power to restore your daughter to health, right?" Joseph's expression suddenly stiffened, and he bit his teeth in his mouth directly. "You dare to use my daughter as a threat?" Rogers frowned. "What's going on?" But Tony said to himself, "Mr. Chairman, I have a video and report here, which will probably calm your overheated mind." His visor released light. A clear projection was formed in the air. It was Joseph's lively daughter Jenny. Joseph panicked when he knew that Tony had really touched his daughter. But then, a report and an internal examination of Jenna's body appeared in the image, which made Joseph stunned. Tony said in a cold voice, "You think you are a great father who can even give the whole earth to Ganon for your daughter? And you are still proud of this selfish and extreme action, right? Do you think that, if you become a ghost like this, and surrender to that bastard Ganon, your daughter will really recover?" Tony walked over. "This report shows that some irreversible changes have occurred in your daughter's body. The body is filled with a lot of Ganon pollution and attached to the internal organs. This gives you the illusion that your daughter has recovered miraculously. But this appearance is false. Just like you peeled off your daughter's skin and stuck it on a dog's body. It's stupid. Little Jenny has begun to be affected by Ganon. She has a strong desire to attack. She goes crazy intermittently and bites to death a nurse who has been taking care of her for 3 years, just like an irrational rabies patient." The corresponding picture also appeared on the screen. Joseph looked at his daughter with blood in her mouth and fanatical eyes, and was so scared that his spider legs could not move. "Impossible. This is impossible," he muttered. "What a joke." Tony roared, "Look at how ugly you are now. The bastard Ganon who made you look like this. Do you think this kind of rubbish can really save your daughter?" Tony stared at Joseph. "Your daughter has been completely ruined by you. Sooner or later, she will become a monster like you. You can't save anything." Joseph shed tears in a daze. "What should I do? Who can help me?" Tony shook his head. "No one can help you. You are hopeless, and neither is your daughter." In the end, Tony couldn't control himself and said softly, "Go to hell." Joseph repeated in a low voice, "Ganon, Ganon, 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 Ganon." The low voice turned into a roar. Joseph screamed madly. Ganon. In the last roar of anger, Joseph froze and lowered his head. He fell off the body of the Ganon spider. He turned into a small dry corpse on the ground, which could fit into the hole of a primary school student's desk. After getting rid of the main body, the Ganon spider shrank quickly and turned into a palm-sized spider with a human face and quickly tried to escape. But Rogers went up and crushed it with one foot. Juice and shell fragments splashed everywhere. The spider legs were still struggling stiffly, and finally there was no movement at all. The breath of Ganon's curse faded little by little. Tony's voice was a little dry. The best way to destroy the Ganon puppet is to destroy the puppet's belief in Ganon. Rogers looked at Tony. Is what you said true? Tony nodded. That kid. Oh, forget it. Rogers sighed inaudibly. Welcome to subscribe and vote for support. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.